Hi guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I'm your host Moose, and this is my producer Nick. Our main discussion is about Islam in the 21st century. However, we will critique other religions and ideologies. We condemn any form of discrimination, violence, misogyny, slavery. We do, however, embrace many perspectives and free speech if it is factual and correct, and not based on any hate. Throughout the show, we will be exploring different religious beliefs, practices, and their impact on society, ranging from politics, interpersonal relationships, and mental health of believers and non-believers. We hope to create an open dialogue for those who feel they're not heard, especially those who have doubts and have left their belief systems. If you are interested in exploring the complex topic of religion and wish to be part of an honest and open dialogue, this is the show for you. We also welcome feedback and discussion from our audience and listeners. The Gin and Tonic Show is a free speech platform where you can express your ideas without any fear of violence and repercussions or any consequences. Please do join our discussion in the live chat as well as the comments. Thank you for stopping by and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show.
Hello and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I am your host and the Gin and Tonic Show himself, Moose. I am joined by a very well-mannered, very well-cultured. He will come into your dreams and nightmares and say everything is complicated. And I am also joined by Qasir Yadi, or Yasir Qadi, and I'm joined by a new guest, Shahid. Welcome, Shahid.
Thank you so much for inviting.
Yes, so I invited Shahid as he wanted to also join the topic as well. And of course, you know, Qasir Yadi is Nick in disguise.
Hey, maybe if we can fool Muhammad hijab once or twice, he'll trash talk us and get us some views.
Yeah, we might to get some views if we get trash talk. But yes, Culture Ginny, you were saying something about your how you are the Iblis advocate.
Yes, I'm here to complicate things to such a degree that I myself will get complications and complexes from these discussions.
Well, to be fair, the topics that we're going to cover are also complex in themselves too. So I think you're the perfect man for this, for this endeavor. And I apologize for putting you through this because you I know you'd like to stay away from the topic of the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Yes, you own me, man. You own me.
Yeah. And it's just like it gets heated. It gets, like I said in previous video, it gets emotional. Everyone starts playing victim or starts caring about said victims. And then there's also a lot of like performative empathy. There's a lot of performative empathy too. And yes, Ginny is indeed a human encyclopedia of history. Do check out his channel, by the way. The channel Culture Ginny, Humanities channel, and he's done some amazing videos so far. I loved his video on vampires. He does old lore. He does Islamic lore. He does the video about jinns themselves, and history itself too.
I do a lot of stuff on my channel. And by the way, the dude that buy this, I'm thankful for you calling me the human encyclopedia of history. It really warms my heart.
Well,
you have this confidence in me.
Yeah, Mojik, yes, he did a video on vampires. So this will be a huge.
It was during this month of October. I kind of dedicated all my videos to discussing folklore and creatures from religion and similar.
Yeah, especially the spooky stuff for the month of October too, since it was
Yes.
Halloween. Yeah, I know I'm. But yeah, before we begin, Shahid, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Shahid Malik. I just joined it here to learn more about the Israel-Palestine conflict from you guys, because it is one of the longest ongoing conflicts, and there is so much chaos. There are so many narratives from the media and from everyone. And I just joined here to learn more about, because I watched the last two episodes which you sent me the link of, and I liked it that really, and I enjoyed that discussions. So I eagerly was waiting to be a part of this, so I can hear and I can learn more about this.
Yeah,
Thank
not
you.
a problem. Not
Thank
a
you so
problem. We're
much.
we're more than welcome to have like as diverse voices that is. And are you of Muslim background by chance, Mr. Shahid?
Yes, I was born in a Muslim family.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we have a diverse cast over here, an ex-Muslim, a person from Muslim background, a jinn, literal jinn over there, and then a mockery of Yasser Qadi right there. Nick, I'm looking at you.
Initially, I was
Thank
surprised.
you.
I thought it's the real Yasir Qazi.
No. This is he loves to mock literally every figure you imaginable, including every religious figure imaginable.
I've
So,
done PragerU, Daniel Hakikachu, Muhammad Hijab, Andrew Tate, everyone.
yes, and I think it was Ginny gets to cringe in the corner.
Yes, I feel the cringe. It's overwhelming me.
Yeah, I so apologize to Ginny. But yes, but today I wanted to touch on two different topics. One was, of course, the Israel-Palestine conflict, but the other one I wanted to discuss was Pakistan's what do you call it, double
You
standard,
mean
but also
uh,
the story of the Afghan refugees. So,
and are you going to talk about how he kicked your ass in the last cricket match?
let's not discuss it, shall we, Mr. Yasser Yadi? Let's not discuss the cricket match itself because it was such a humiliating defeat. It was so humiliating that I could not even face yourself or any of my Indian friends because how the cricket team humiliated me. Like they never thought about my feelings. But it's just a game. It's a game. It was well played. India played really well, really well. But anyway, yes. What do you call it? Oh my god, my strong. Oh Jesus, El Haj cheese Fauji cereal. All right. Um. Anyway, so we had an escalation from we've heard that it's mainly focused on, like, I'll show you the article, right? Like the focus is on, like, another school just got hit due to amid heavy bombing. And again, I'll use a variety. I'll discuss what is presented to us. um Heavy school bombardment, and the at least 15 killed in a Jabalia refugee camp. Now the Jabalia refugee camp, I'm aware, is again, many allege that it's a hideout for
Jabalia.
Jabalia, but there's also a lot of civilians there. And Turkey says it's recalling its ambassador to Israel for consultations over due to the humanitarian crisis attacks in Gaza. So there's constant updates. And again, there was the letting fuel into Gaza because you had people stranded in Gaza. The hospitals were running out of fuel. There were 1,000 machines. There were 24 ambulances and 130 incubators that needed fuel. So we do need, and also more than 60 hostages just went missing after Israeli airstrikes, according to Hamas. That is, according to Hamas. This is not what we're saying. Now, the armed wing of Hamas says more than 60 hostages are missing because of the airstrikes on Gaza. And now it's like, what the heck just happened? Like, I'm guessing this may be Gaza's. This may be Hamas's attempt to get up.
Now, Moose, I have a question. I know that Al Jazeera is a truly unbiased opinion piece here.
Oh yeah.
But what I would like to ask is are they always talking about the Hamas choice sources here? They never discuss the PLO choices, because we all know that Hamas is a great humanitarian organization too, right? Like, can we get some better actual sources from outside of a terrorist organization, please?
All right, let's go to the terrorist state. Times of Israel. How about that? Times of Israel.
No, when I say that, because 3 times the statistics that they gave about the hospitals and everything are from actual Hamas numbers. They don't show any Amnesty International Watch or any of the actual PLO numbers or the people from the Gaza on ground. They're always showing from the Hamas numbers, and
I don't think Times of Israel is better. It's just in the opposite direction. But let's continue.
Yeah, I know it's just the sources are biased, but what can you do? What do you call it? There's also a fear. This is also like another thing. Like, there's parchments, and from an air top, there's, what do you call those things? Flyers dropped from the air, leaflets dropped from the air. On calls they warn of the attack. This does happen. Now,
I think that they do not give enough time to, because if you give enough time to react to these warnings, then you give people enough time to move. So they are just sending it immediately as they are attacking, which is kind of like, it's just a propaganda stunt, more or less.
And the thing is, like as you said, there's not enough time for people to even consider move, because how the hell are you going to get entire families to move? So, this is where it gets very frustrating, because it's like you said, it's just showing, oh, hey, we do these leaflets and blah, blah, blah. But you end up still bombing the crap out of the place. And not only that, we have, I think Abdullah Samir did an interesting post on Facebook. I'll just share it with you. Just give me a second. I know I have just so many links, because there's so many stories coming out that we don't know who, there's just so many developments that it gets very.
But on that topic of what the dude Bides mentioned, I think it's a very strong question to ask. Is if, let's say, so instead of instead of Hamas hiding inside of a hospital in Palestine, let's say it was hiding in an Israeli hospital, would Israel do the same carpet bombing on its own hospital, killing 3,000 Israeli citizens, as it did to the Palestinian citizens?
Exactly. You
consider, would it consider that as civilian casualties, as the way it's saying for Palestinian casualties there, or?
Obviously,
because I find it as the weakest fucking hypocrisy that you can find. That it's not 1 or 2; it's 3,000 people in a hospital that got killed. And I agree. If Hamas is a cowardice organization hiding under weak people inside of a hospital, but with the kind of AI technology that their IDF actually has, I'm pretty sure there were other ways they could have handled it instead of bombing a hospital, and then them saying they have the height of hypocrisy there.
No, absolutely. And I wanted to share Abdullah Samir's post, which is Hamas itself is hiding underground in network tunnels. Hamas has spent millions of dollars building an extensive underground network of tunnels and bunkers to store and transport weapons. Only Hamas members have access to these bunkers, where they shelter while civilians are bombed above ground. When the shelling is over, they reemerge and take control again. Unlike Israel, Hamas hasn't built any civilian bomb shelters in Gaza. So, and I doubt that the Israeli intelligence would not know this. I highly doubt that they would not know this because, again, this was an article called "You Can Be Pro-Palestinian, Pro-Hamas, You Can't Be Both." And I think I sent you something that gave the game away. And this
sent me a lot of things.
Yeah, I know. And this was reported. The Rational National actually covered he also covers this topic pretty well. He's a Canadian creator. He covers this topic as well. Let me just present the share screen window. All right. I know I'm going to share my conversation with Nick. So this shows, I'll just zoom in a bit. The IDF believes, this is from Times of Israel, 23rd October 2023. IDF believes it's ready for a Gaza ground offensive and that it should start soon. Army wants to carry out incursion even at cost of heavy lives. Let's see this. Even at cost of heavy lives. Fears political echelon may never give order despite high level of readiness.
Heavy losses, not the lives. Losses can include, wrecked vehicles and such as well.
Well, still, it kind of gives the game away.
Yeah, but it gives the game away that they are, determined to actually do this at high cost in both lives and in material or whatever.
Yeah, and
you don't say heavy lives, but heavy losses.
Yeah,
was written.
I know they play with the words heavy losses, but it weirdly gives the game away, Jimmy. It's like,
yeah, it does.
You don't exactly care because even when you destroy infrastructure, lives are still at risk when infrastructure is damaged.
Yes.
On top of that, this was a tweet. The IDF tells the Time of Israel it is concerned that Hamas might release more hostages, which might delay ground invasion. So they were concerned that the Hamas is going to release hostages. So this also gives it away. It's like, do you even give a shit about
this is just the Netanyahu and his circle of politicians and high brass in the military. They do not want peace. I argued this before.
Yeah,
and in the previous streams, they do not want peace. Just because Hamas are evil and, doing the most terrible of things right now with, the recent attack, the killings of civilians, children, even small infants. That does not mean that the other side is good.
Yep.
No, Culture Jenny, I'll have to agree with you on that because in any conflict, peace isn't what's wanted, right? Especially because I don't know if you remember right before the Russian-Ukrainian war, right before this, guess who they released for that American basketball player as a hostage, a prisoner exchange? Victor Belt. And for the audience who doesn't know who Victor Belt is, they made a movie called Lord of War based off of him with Nick Cage. But this guy is like the scummiest of scummy arm dealers, and I believe he's the one that provided all the arms for the Libyan civil war as well, right? Single-handedly, like all the tanks, all the weapons and such, and he had his hand in like weapon smuggling all over the world. He got released a month or so right before the war happened in Ukraine and Russia, and this started, right? So I definitely think there's some kind of not definitely think, but there is definitely conspiracies that we as a general public and unbiased.
I mean, he was connected to Russia, right?
Yeah,
and
he's Russian.
I mean, the thing with these things are that things can also happen simultaneously due to various other initiatives and the political plans. So you do not have just one thing happening in a political scenario or in politics. You have several happening at the same time. So some of them are connected with each other, some might not be.
Because another thing goes is like how many billions of dollars of humanitarian aid is being sent around to these areas that magically goes poof. Because the UN wasn't, because right before this incident as well, the UN was saying $6 billion can end world hunger. No one was putting in that money, but all of a sudden Israel needs $11 billion. Hamas needs certain billions of dollars, and they're magically getting it from thin air, right? So the amount of corruption that's going on is also high. So that aspect of wanting peace is not going to happen, and media is playing us like a fucking fiddle here. And to see people just be so angry at the government not calling ceasefires or whatnot, I think it's a really big headache that we really need to be delving into properly.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I also found something as well. This is something that's not talked about a lot, and it is the effect of trauma. So this was a story shared also all over social media, but a lot of people don't know the context behind this. So I'll just present this. So this is Palestinian children in Gaza playing with a baby, but they're, kind of like playing it as though they're carrying him to the hospital or this baby to the hospital, because this is the reality that they face all the time. And this is something that we don't talk about, the effect on young minds, young children. And this is how they express trauma, or they cope with it. That is, this is a coping mechanism in regards to the harsh realities of, the war. That is, and there has been, and this is, it's inside a hospital. So there has been also research done. I think it was done by Human Rights Watch. Let me see, Human Rights Watch, Palestinian children. Trauma. 1 second. Let me just see. And there has been. Wait. Yeah, I couldn't find it. As attack. God damn it! There's just such a, Hold on 1 second. Trauma. Or I had this article. I apologize, guys. I had this article. Children in war. Yes. This is from NPR, actually. 1 second. Yeah, so I found the article. So this is not something we're making up. Palestinian children. Come on, load. There we go. Can you guys see this? Okay, I think it appears on this.
Yeah, I can see it, but it seems to not be a video, but a.
Yeah. It's an article.
It's an article or audio play.
Okay, so Palestinians are exposed and are suffering from depression, and this is years of research on kids found have high rates of post-traumatic stress and depression as a result of being exposed to chronic ethnic political violence. And they talk about the Israel continues its airstrikes and ground campaign. That assault left them more than 1,400 Israelis dead and more than 200 hostage after the Hamas attack. As the conflict continues, the impact on Gaza's children has become shockingly evident. According to Palestinian health officials, more than 9,000 Palestinians have been killed. Nearly half were children. Thousands more have been injured and have lost family members. Kids growing up in Gaza have never known a life without the threat of violence and conflict. That kind of cumulative trauma, researchers say, can have a profound effect on a child's emotional development. unless they're given a chance to recover. She talks about the byline, Iman Ritu Chatterjee. She talks about grew up in Gaza but has lived in India for 20 years. She's a psychologist working with refugee kids at a community clinic, but most of her. So this is an interview of sorts. So this is, she talks about her story. So I'll actually link this. So there's Fear of Darkness. Yeah, scores of other studies have documented high rates of post-traumatic stress amongst both kids in Gaza and the West Bank. And it's, so this entire, there's, it's kind of like an interview. So I'll link this in the chat so you guys can check out yourselves. Again, for the interest of time itself. For the interest of, here you go, guys. So I'll just post the link here. I'll also post the link. And welcome back, Qasar Yadi. Welcome back.
Hello, good sir. So I also resent you a video I thought was really detailed by Walks, actually.
Okay, 1 second. By Walks?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's
it should be in your WhatsApp. Yeah, because I think they do a really detailed explanation of this, but it's short enough that we can probably do a review to understand the conflict.
Yeah, so it talks about the brief history of the conflict. And also, like, it's a 10-minute video, but yeah, we'll respond to this. Let me just share it. Okay.
Oh, and Shahid, you've been quiet so far. Do you have any statements or?
No, not right now. I'm just enjoying. I just want to listen today.
Oh, not a problem. You can also put in your comments too. You can even discuss.
If I have any questions, I will just let you know.
Oh no, even in the chat too. You can even come to the chat as well if you have access to it. On the YouTube chat, that is. So this is the Israel-Palestine, a brief, simple history. So this is done by Vox. Yeah, this one, it says this is from 2016, by the way.
Might I say something? You can never summarize this conflict in under an hour.
Yeah.
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 But for me, I personally like, or at least the 2018 onward with Hezbollah Klein, I think Walks went to shit. But like the reason why I chose this one is that this era of Walks was very accurate, quite like the 2014 Weiss.
Yeah, so I know Vox went downhill too. It's but yeah, let's give everybody a fair chance to put in their 2 cents. Everybody's allowed to have bad takes, like Ginny said, or good takes. Everybody's allowed.
One of the biggest myths about the Israel-Palestine conflict is that it's been going on for centuries, all about ancient religious hatreds. In fact, while religion is involved, conflict's mostly about two groups of people who claim the same land, and it really only goes back about a century to the early 1900s. Around then, the region along the eastern Mediterranean we now call Israel-Palestine, been under Ottoman rule for centuries, was religiously diverse, including mostly Muslims and Christians, also a small number of Jews who lived generally in peace. It was changing in two important ways. First, more people in the region were developing a sense of being not just ethnic Arabs, but Palestinians, a distinct national identity. At the same time, not so far away in Europe, more Jews were joining a movement called Zionism, which said that Judaism was not just a religion, but a nationality, one that deserved a nation of its own. And after centuries of persecution,
Moose, can you pause?
Yes.
Would Judaism be, according to you, would Judaism be considered a race, a nationality, or a religion?
I consider it a religion, though. A lot of people state that, there's the ethnic, and it gets a little complicated. But for my definition, at least from my observation, and again, I could be wrong, this is just my opinion. And an opinion is the lowest form of human knowledge. Judaism, as far as my observation goes, it's a religion. And I think this is also the problem.
I would say that it is both.
Yeah. Yeah. You can give your reasonings. Yes, because I've heard that argument too. Like,
you have cultural traditions that are, you have language traditions with influences from Hebrew,
yes,
the revival movement of Hebrew, and various languages that were influenced by it and spoken like like a separate community in their host nations when they were in the diaspora. You also have separate cultural rituals. You have various interactions and cultures when it comes to production and cultural stories that aren't just religious but are certainly influenced by the religion. Like every story in like every civilization usually contains some religious elements from that civilization, but they do have things outside of their religion which also define them.
And also, I'll
Because
say,
if I can just add as well, doesn't Judaism it actually disencourages conversions actually? Because let us take Islam as an example. The way you can convert to Islam is just taking a simple shahada, saying that Allah is the one true God and his latest messenger is Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then you're now a Muslim. Whereas in Judaism, you have to go through an entire procedure. That's next to close to impossible outside if you've been trained since childhood for it at special Jewish schools, especially in Toronto. There's multiple of them that send you to Israel for it. So wouldn't that be a major difference there?
that, and also there's groups within Judaism, like Orthodox Jews. You have also a new group called humanistic Jews, that is, who actually want to focus more on culture rather than the religious elements.
I mean, these aren't just yes, and I mean, the thing is, Jews are both Judaism and the Jews are Judaism is the religion, but Jewry is like the ethnicity, or not just one ethnicity, but it's like the civilization, because it's bigger than just one ethnicity. Because you have, for example, you have Ashkenazi Jews from Northern Europe and Eastern Europe. You have Sephardi Jews from parts of the Middle East and Southern Europe. You also have Mizrahi Jews from the Middle East. You have Habashi Jews from Ethiopia, and you have some other Jewish subgroups as well. And then you have also subsects of Judaism. You have rabbinical Judaism, which splits up in Habashi rabbinical tradition and Yemeni rabbinical traditions, and then you have the ordinary or rather larger rabbinical traditions that develop among most of those Jews that we know, among both Mizrahi, Ashkenazi, and the Sephardic Jews. Then you have, then you also have the Karaites, which aren't rabbinical Jews, but are an entirely different branch. They're kind of like, they are very different. They are a minority among Jews and kind of like the counterculture to a lot of Jewish stuff.
Now, Culture Jenny, just as another, I know we're sidetracking a bit, but just as another question there, then what's the difference between that and schools of thought?
Schools of thought are even more subdivisions within these groups. These are more like the subdivisions between the Sunnis and Shia in Islam.
Yes.
The Karaites are kind of like the Karaites, those that read. Actually, the Karaim comes from the same root as Quran and that, but in Hebrew. So it's the same root. But it means those that recite because or read, because those were the ones that wanted to only read the traditional Hebrew divine text and rejected the rabbinical traditions about stories and such. And the rabbinical traditionalists or some, I've forgotten the term in Hebrew, but they call themselves the people of the traditions because they adhere to the rabbinical recital traditions and traditions about sayings of the prophets and various rabbinical masters and the like.
Yes.
So so it's kind of like if Quranists or Quranist only Muslims were kind of taking the place of the Shia. But you have to remember that a lot of for example, the Talmud, which are these tales and the like, both the Babylonian and the Jerusalem Talmud. The Babylonian is considered the more bigger and more important and more authentic Talmud collection, but both are used in addition to a lot of lesser collections.
Yeah.
They are the two main ones. But in Judaism, it is mostly viewed like this. It is that a lot of the Talmud, is actually there to lighten a lot of the rules in the Old Testament and make it, often modify them a bit, because they say, oh, it was done like this, or it should be interpreted like this.
Yeah.
In a much more less extreme way, or they give context that pushes it in that direction. A lot of the Karaites have historically been known as extremist groups because they kind of take things very literally.
Yes. There's also something I wanted
the
to...
AI Shahada. I bear witness that there is no God but ACI, artificial superintelligence. There is none worthy of worship but ACI. And computer science, and computer scientists are the messengers of ACI.
Yes.
This actually reminds me. This reminds me of a story. If I can explain that story, there's once this super computer that was designed by some engineers. They were like, they ask it all the questions. It becomes sentient and all knowing, and then they're like, okay, is there a God? This thing fries up the electrical outlet so you can't take it out. And then there is now. This kind of like dark future might be there, so don't be meddling with the superpowers that are involved.
Also, by the way, Drastic says hello to Shahid. By the way, he corrected his spelling for Shahid. Yeah, apologies, Drastic. It was just something I came up. I just had to run last minute and start a half an hour late. My apologies for this. But yeah, no, today I really wanted to, and and prefer, even Ginny prefers that. We just finished, even if it's a little late, we'll finish it on Saturday.
This is about the correction of the name Shahid here.
Yes.
This is one of those things that always confuses me with Arabic names. It should be Shahid in Arabic. So I don't. Sometimes I say it in the Arabic way, and it turns out no, it's not how we say it in our language. And I just got
Yeah, well, keep in
So
mind.
I think there are two names. These are two separate names, Shahid and Shaheed. These both are Arabic. Shahid means witness, and Shaheed means martyr.
Shahid is the one that is seeing, and Shaheed is the one that is martyred.
Yes, absolutely. Shaheed, the martyr, and Shahid is witness.
Yes.
Also, Ginny, congratulations for doing yet another multiple hours long discussion in Israel. Include my recent live. This is his 4th of a month.
Yes.
I'm so sorry I put you through this. I have to apologize a lot.
But hey, I get to discuss Jewish subgroups.
Yes, and you get to some interesting.
And but on the subject of Jewish subgroups, you also have actually conflicts in modern Israel about who is a Jew or who is not, due to these religious and also ethnic differences that exist among various Jewish groups. Are you a Jew?
Yes,
because they have so different traditions from each other, and some, for example, Karaite Jews, they don't think that you are born a Jew through the mother. You're born a Jew through the father.
Interesting. This is a very interesting tradition. Very interesting. So yeah, this is. But anyway, let's continue with this. So yeah, there's definitely some conflict within the. But yeah, let's continue.
State was their only way of safety and saw their historic homeland in the Middle East as their best hope for establishing it. In the first decades of the 20th century, tens of thousands of Europeans.
Well, to be fair, they were even ready to go to Ethiopia or any other country too. So they weren't just aiming for the Palestinian region. They were ready for any part of the world.
Jews moved there. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed. British and French empires carved up the Middle East, the British taking control of a region it called the British Mandate for Palestine. At first, the British allowed Jewish immigration, but as more Jews arrived, settling into farming communities, tension between Jews and Arabs grew. Both sides committed acts of violence, and by the 1930s, the British began limiting Jewish immigration.
Also, there was a lot of illegal migrants too that came.
You also had the Jewish militias and
militias,
straight out terror organizations like Irgun and the like.
Mag Hagana or something like that.
Yes, and Irgun and the others. There was a lot of them, and because they had various ideologies. Some of them were even, kind of like communistic, socialistic, and nationalistic in their outlook. Some were religious. Some were, more secular, more right wing, nationalist, and some were just, just purely kind of like religious.
Interesting.
They were and they had a lot of infighting between each other too. Due to this fact that they were so split.
Actually, very interesting though, many of them had served in the British Army. A lot of them. So they had the military training and the weapons from the British Army, hence which gave them the edge. Let me just continue.
Jewish militias formed to fight both the local Arabs and to resist British rule. Then came the Holocaust, leading many more Jews to flee Europe for British Palestine and galvanizing much of the world in support of a Jewish state. In 1947, as sectarian violence between Jews and Arabs there grew, the United Nations approved a plan to divide British Palestine into two separate states. One for Jews, Israel, and one for Arabs, Palestine. The city of Jerusalem, where Jews, Muslims, and Christians all have holy sites, was to become a special international zone. The plan was meant to give Jews a state, to establish Palestinian independence, and to end the sectarian violence that the British could no longer control. The Jews accepted the plan, and they declared independence as Israel. But Arabs throughout the region saw the UN plan as just more European colonialism trying to steal their land. Many of the Arab states, who had just recently won independence themselves, declared war on Israel in an effort to establish a unified Arab Palestine where all of British Palestine had been. The new state of Israel.
And this was a big mistake because they were.
It was a from the Arabs declaring it was kind of a mistake. But remember, what would they do? They actually had legitimate grievances. This was kind of like a colonial thing.
Yeah,
you also have the Nakba going on here, where the Israelis are kicking out people. They started even before the war declaration to do this.
Oh yeah, and keep in mind, I think there was they had legitimate grievances, but I'm more speaking on from a military standpoint.
Yes, I actually do kind of. I think that if they had continued and done a very long, drawn out, suffocating war with kind of a grinding war rather than trying to blitzkrieg it, then I do think that they would have been able to actually eventually defeat.
Yeah, because keep in mind
Israel.
Israeli narrative that we defeated three big nations. There's this narrative. In reality, the Arab states were not as well armed. They did not have the manpower as the Jewish.
They did not have initially the large amounts of manpower, but they could have if they instead of trying to do a quick victory against Israel, which they did try, which they didn't have the training or the logistics to do. If they have instead tried to fight very much defensively and try to inflict casualties over a longer period and with less casualties on their own side, instead of winning the big victory in a short while, then they would have eventually grinded Israel down, I think.
Yes.
The real issue was that they tried to rush it.
And again, keep in mind, we're just talking in terms of.
I'm not trying to moralize here or say that one side was wrong or right. I'm just saying that they did have a chance.
Yeah.
But they blew it.
Well, for me, it's more like I'm just seeing it from a very, very militaristic point of view.
I think that in an attrition war that was more defensive and more grindy, then I think Israel would have lost.
Yeah. I think given that, this was, like you said, Blitzkrieg is a horrible tactic, horrible war tactic. Especially if
It's
you're not Germany.
It's horrible if you're not trained enough and if you're not coordinated with various units enough to do it.
Yeah.
Because it leaves you into a very vulnerable position.
Yeah. And by the way, let's continue with the Arab-Israeli War of 1948 to 1949.
Israel won the war, but in the process, they pushed well past their borders under the UN plan, taking the western half of Jerusalem and much of the land that was to have been part of Palestine. They also expelled huge numbers of Palestinians from their homes, creating a massive refugee population whose descendants today number about 7 million. At the end of the war, Israel controlled all of the territory except for Gaza, which Egypt controlled, and the West Bank, named because it's west of the Jordan River, which Jordan controlled. This was the beginning of the decades-long Arab-Israeli conflict. During this period, many Jews in Arab-majority countries fled or were expelled, arriving in Israel. Then something happened that transformed the conflict. In 1967,
I actually did not know that there were Jewish persons from the...
actually, it's almost like I think there might even be a majority of the Israelis might actually be Mizrahi and Sephardi Jews from the Middle East.
Right.
Because those are the two types of Jews that live in the Middle East. Sephardis, or rather, Sephardis do not live in the Middle East. They live in North Africa. But, they live in the, kind of like, from Tunisia, Morocco, and, Algeria, and they fled. And then you have the Mizrahi that live in, like, Egypt. And you also have, like, both Sephardics and Mizrahi in kind of like the Turkey area, but that's outside the Arab world. And you also have some mixing in Egypt and Libya between both groups there.
Okay, yeah, this is what I didn't know of this small fact. But yeah, 6 days war. Let's see what happens here.
Israel and the neighboring Arab states fought another war. When it ended, Israel had seized the Golan Heights from Syria, the West Bank from Jordan, and both Gaza and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. Israel was now occupying the Palestinian territories, including all of Jerusalem and its holy sites. This left Israel responsible for governing the Palestinians.
They still have the Golan Heights under military control.
In Syria, right? And today there was there's escalation, which I'll actually cover the Syria conflict too. Like Israel's pushing into the Golan Heights. But yeah, this is they still have that under their control, and they pushed into Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. I was like, oh wow, they had control of the entire thing. Wow.
It had fought for decades. In 1978, Israel and Egypt signed the U.S.-brokered Camp David Accords. Shortly after that, Israel gave Sinai back to Egypt as part of the peace treaty. At the time, this was hugely controversial in the Arab world. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat was assassinated in part because of outrage against it.
It was also very controversial among the Israelis.
Really?
Because some of the Israelis, since this was part of the greater, empire under King Solomon, they wanted to have it.
Oh, that's why. That's why they didn't want to let it go. Wow. Okay. So
this is also because he conquered up to the old kingdom of Aram in what is modern day Syria, and thus they also want not only the Golan Heights because it provides a very good defensive position against attacks from Syria, but also because it would, in a certain nationalist rhetoric, be a springboard to further invasions into Syria in the future.
Yeah. And
because you have these people on the Jewish on the Israeli side, because not all Jews think like this. These are the very hardcore nationalists and religious fanatics that want to revive King David's largest extent empire. Most do not want this, but those people actually do talk about these things as being a long game plan.
Yeah.
Oh, and Drastic made a point in the comments as well. I was going to mention it too, that it's been a slow migration for a long time, but I think it's worth addressing that.
Yeah, it was the migrations have happened. I mean, Aliyah has happened even before the British controlled the area, and even before the Ottoman Empire. There even back, in medieval ages, people actually did go back to the Holy Land to settle there due to religious reasons.
Yeah.
So you have had this idea about returning to the Holy Land in Jewish religion.
Okay. Let's see what happens here.
And it did
Sorry,
it did intensify a lot during the 19th century, when the territory was still occupied by the Ottomans. But remember, the Ottomans were dominated by the Turks, and the Turks actually had. These are problems when people think that the Islamic world is unified. They need to remember that these various peoples in the Middle East that have battled each other despite being of the same religion.
Oh, yeah.
Or of similar religion, as most Palestinians are actually Shafi'i Sunnis rather than Hanafi Sunnis like the Turks, and also follow Ash'ari creed rather than Maturidi creed like the Ottomans. But so you do have a difference there. But the thing is that the Ottomans actually allowed a lot of Jewish settlements because the Ottomans wanted to more or less, push down the Arabs because they wanted to dominate them, and thus having another group that you can play them off against, like Jews coming from the West, from Europe, is just kind of like a good way of doing that.
This was interesting because now you kind of see that even the Ottomans aren't so, or the Turkic Ottomans, the Turkish Ottomans, aren't so innocent in this matter. Like,
why do you think the Arabs revolted against the Ottoman Empire during the First World War?
Oh, so this
why so many Arabs did that? It's not due to the fact that the Ottoman Empire treated them nicely.
Yeah, they treated them.
And I mean, there are often massacres of Arabs.
Oh,
what was it called? The Jawazi massacre, for example, happened in the middle of the 19th century.
Oh, damn.
We usually discuss a lot about the Armenian genocide, but the Ottomans and the early late Ottomans weren't nice towards anyone except the core imperial population of the Turks in the end.
Yeah, and I also heard that they had, like, of course, conflicts within the empire against Shia Muslims, as well as the Safavid Iranians, and then eventually also the Qashqai as well too, the Qashqai Iranians in their borders. That is, but I'm guessing this is also both a border and religious dispute too, with the Iranians. But yeah,
and Culture Jenny, as a question, was the Ottoman Empire still a part of the secular governance system at the time when they were doing this, or was it still?
No. I mean, the Ottoman Empire was still the caliphate during this time in the 19th century when they were doing this. But I mean, you need to remember that a lot of things when it comes to religion is just window dressing in politics.
Yeah. All right.
And I mean, the Ottomans have always been kind of like very flexible with their religion in certain ways.
Yes. No, this is something.
This has to do with their Maturidi interpretation of Hanafism, which gives almost all interpretive power to the authority rather than to religious clerics. So you have. Yeah, they also liberalized a lot of their laws in the 19th century.
Yeah, keep in mind, Ginny, I remember in Hanafi school, for the execution of, let's say, queer persons, right? The execution of queer persons, or the punishment for queer persons. Almost all of the schools had a death penalty or some form of like harsh punishment, except for Hanafi. Hanafi said it is up to the ruler. This was where the little
this is probably late, but you had a lot of other excuses as well. But I mean, there is a saying about Imam Hanafi is that he could make khamr, which is alcohol, halal, if you got him enough time to discuss it. But the thing about these things, especially about Maturidism, because this is the other theological addition, because Hanafis can actually be Ash'ari,
Yeah.
too. They do not need to be Maturidis.
Yeah.
They can actually be, Ash'ari too. But the Ottomans were Maturidi followers, and they have the view that they have several things that actually help the Ottoman Empire to actually assume a lot of centralized control in the rulership, because it's kind of like everything belongs to the leader in that type of Islam. It's quite if you compare that to, for example, Shafi'i Ash'ari, traditions, they would say that everything should be decided by an oligarchy of scholars rather than a centralized authority.
Yeah, so they consider like the scholar should be a separate entity instead of like the rulers.
Yeah, they shouldn't be subservient to the rulership like they are in the Hanafi Maturidi tradition of the Ottomans.
Yes, yeah. So
you have those things that explains why the Ottomans are also very much more flexible.
Okay, the Ottomans did liberalize their laws, but were still officially caliphate.
Yeah.
By comment, it's ironic the Ottomans are held as a bastion of religious when even
definitely.
directly under them. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that they treated actually Sunnis other Sunnis a lot worse historically than they treated Shia Muslims.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. And also, drastic is the other comment. Ottomans quasi-decriminalized homosexuality in 19, but it was never made official. Yeah, it was just decriminalized, and it's also like to an extent because of the caliph himself. Because the caliph himself was educated abroad, and I think was it Usman or something like that? Crap, I forgot his name. But that he decriminalized. Actually, let me just caliph who decriminalized homosexual. Yeah, the Google is my friend now.
Right now, Sultan. It might be a better search term.
Male lover. Okay, no, there was a caliph. Amin had a male lover. Interesting. Where is this? What do you call it? No. Oh wow. Okay. We might end up opening a rabbit hole of homosexuality with with caliphates. If we talk Ottomans, I'm gonna just specify Ottomans.
Melissa, are you trying to convert me to the wrong way here?
Shut up. All right. So
Christie also wrote that not only Muslims, even Greeks, with forced conversions and kidnapping children. Yes and no. What we are discussing here is actually later Ottomans, but they did that too earlier with the Janissary system. But by this time, in the 19th century, they have already abolished the Janissary system, but they are still very repressive against Sunnis, and they were repressive at times with Greek Christians as well. But I would just say that actually, and this is no way excusing their brutality in the Balkans and in Europe, but I would say actually people have since most history in modern times are written by Westerners, they focus upon what happens with the Ottoman Empire in the Balkans, but they usually overlook what the Ottoman Empire did in the Middle East. And I would say that the harshest repressions of the Ottomans happened in the Middle East. Remember also that is where most of their territory is, and where they, for most of their history, it is not so much in later history that we're discussing now, but for most of their history, they actually had to fight against another large empire that was known as the Safavid Empire.
Yeah.
So they were much more concerned with them than with Europe.
And keep in mind, though, 1858, the year it happened was 1858.
Yeah, this is later. I'm just saying that we usually forget that the Ottomans were extremely harsh towards other Muslims.
Abdul Majid the First. Okay, Abdul Majid the First. He under him. Okay. I found the I found that the caliph, that is Ottoman. He was Abdul Majid. Okay. Today's hardline conservative Muslims who bemoan the fall of the caliphate, the Ottomans actually condemned them as non-Muslims by 1920s. Yeah.
Well, most of them would.
Yeah. They were considered.
Do you still have those that do not? I mean, you have hardliner Hanafi Maturidis in Turkey that want the old Ottoman Empire back.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we diverted a little bit. Let's
we diverted.
Yeah, I know, but again, it's still an interesting discussion. But yeah, let's.
Because we began to talk about this because the Ottomans actually welcomed Jews into the Palestine territory due to the fact that they could use them to play out against the Palestinians.
Yes. All right.
End of the wider Arab-Israeli conflict. Over the next few decades, the other Arab states gradually made peace with Israel, even if they never signed formal peace treaties. But Israel's military was still occupying the Palestinian territories of the West Bank and Gaza, and this is when the conflict became an Israeli-Palestinian struggle. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, which had formed in the 1960s to seek a Palestinian state, fought against Israel, including through acts of terrorism. Initially, the PLO claimed all of what had been British Palestine, meaning it wanted to end the state of Israel entirely. Fighting between Israel and the PLO went on for years.
Now, like Hamas, would they...
PLO is different from Hamas, though, keep in mind.
Yeah, I know, right? So that's what I'm saying. In terms of when they say they're fighting against Israel, do we have their manifesto as to what their goals are?
I don't know if we have Hamas's manifesto, but I can look it up. I can look up Hamas's manifesto.
Hamas and the PLO are different. Don't be racist. I'm talking about the PLOs because I know like Hamas is like they're a separate thing there because when they say getting rid of Israel, they mean getting rid of Jews, and they specifically say that in the manifesto. But I'm talking about the PLO. What does peace look like to them?
Yeah. For them, they did want to eliminate the state of Israel in 1964. So it was until 1993 where the PLO renounced terrorism and recognized Israel's right to exist. So I think they changed their approach in 1993 as an organization. But again, it's a little complicated with PLO because PLO today is what we call the Palestinian Authority, which operates in the West Bank, and are relatively internationally recognized because they issue passports. So they are the recognized authority. But the reason Gaza and West Bank kind of split between Hamas and PLO is because when Hamas won the elections, PLO was like, "Oh no, we don't recognize you as a legitimate government," and that's where they separated. But I think this video might cover it. Let's see if they even cover this situation.
The invasion of Lebanon kicked the group out of Beirut.
The stillness of the ceasefire in southern Lebanon was shattered today by the sound of guns.
And keep in mind, PLO was responsible not only for the Black Saturday in Jordan, but also they played a very dirty part in the civil war in Lebanon. The Lebanese civil war as well, too.
Bombs and planes.
The PLO later said it would accept dividing the land between Israel and Palestine, but the conflict continued. As all of this was happening, something dramatic was changing.
And Yasser Arafat is actually known for taking a lot of aid money and not spending it on, he was just filling his own pocket, too. Because he was getting a lot of donations, a lot of aid money for the cause.
In the Israel-occupied Palestinian territories, Israelis were moving in. These people are called settlers, and they made their homes in the West Bank and Gaza, whether Palestinians wanted them or not. Some moved for religious reasons, some because they want to claim the land for Israel, some just because housing is cheap, often subsidized by the Israeli government. Some settlements are cities with thousands of people, Others are
Oh,
small
I didn't know. Like they actually had subsidized housing there. No wonder why they also went to finances. Also, they kind of set them up pretty much. The Israeli government.
communities deep into the West Bank.
If you've always felt a deep yearning for Jerusalem, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not only to stand within its gates, but also to build the home of your dreams there.
Settlers are followed by soldiers to guard
What the fuck? They actually had that?
them. The growing settlements force Palestinians off of their land and divide communities. Short term, they make the occupation much more painful for Palestinians. Long term, by dividing up Palestinian land, they make it much more difficult for the Palestinians to ever have an independent state. Today, there are several 100,000 settlers in occupied territory, even though the international community considers them illegal. By the late 1980s, Palestinian frustration exploded into the Intifada, which is the Arabic word for uprising. It began with mostly protests and boycotts, but soon became violent. Israel responded with heavy force. A couple hundred Israelis, over 1,000 Palestinians died in the first Intifada. Around the same time, a group of Palestinians in Gaza, considered the PLO too secular, too compromise-minded, created Hamas, a violent extremist group dedicated to Israel's destruction. By the early 1990s,
I think you have your answer now, Nick.
it's clear that Israelis and Palestinians have to make peace. The leaders from both sides signed the Oslo Accords. This is meant to be the big first step toward Israel maybe someday withdrawing from the Palestinian territories and allowing an independent Palestine. The Oslo Accords established the Palestinian Authority, allowing Palestinians a little bit of freedom to govern themselves in certain areas. Hardliners on both sides opposed the Oslo Accords. Members of Hamas launched suicide bombings to try to sabotage the process. The Israeli right protests peace talks with ralliers calling Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin a traitor and a Nazi. Not long after Rabin signs the second round,
Wow, they actually did not like their prime minister also even agreeing to this.
I mean, the extremist, and he got killed later, which they will probably mention.
Oh man.
of Oslo
They will
Accords,
probably mention.
Okay.
a far-right Israeli shoots him to death in Tel Aviv.
Oh shit.
This
Rabin assassinated at rally.
violence showed how extremists on both sides can use violence to derail peace, keep a permanent conflict going as they seek the other side's total destruction. That's a dynamic that's been around ever since. Negotiations meant to hammer out the final details on peace drag on for years, and a big Camp David summit in 2000 comes up empty. Palestinians come to believe peace isn't coming, rise up in a second intifada, this one much more violent than the first. By the time it wound down a few years later, about 1,000 Israelis and 3,200 Palestinians had died. The second intifada really changes the conflict. Israelis become much more skeptical that Palestinians will ever accept peace or that it's even worth trying. Israeli politics shift right, the country builds walls and checkpoints to control Palestinians' movements. They're not really trying to solve the conflict anymore, just to manage it. The Palestinians are left feeling like negotiating didn't work and violence didn't work, and that they're stuck under an ever-growing occupation with no future as a people. That year, Israel withdraws from Gaza. Hamas gains power, but splits from the Palestinian Authority in a short civil war, dividing Gaza from the West Bank. Israel puts Gaza under a suffocating blockade, and unemployment rises to 40%. This is the state of the conflict as we know it today.
And keep in mind, because of this unemployment, a lot of people within Gaza are forced to work for Hamas. They have no other choice because this is the only way they can make money, is to ally with the Hamas or even work under them, whether they like it or not. So this is also a harsh reality we also fail to consider.
It's relatively new and it's unbearable for Palestinians. In the West Bank, more and more settlements are smothering Palestinians, often respond with protests and sometimes with violence. The most just want normal lives. In Gaza, Hamas and other violent groups have periodic wars with Israel. The fighting overwhelmingly kills Palestinians, including lots of civilians. In Israel itself, most people have become apathetic. For the most part, the occupation keeps the conflict relatively removed from their daily lives, with moments of brief but horrible violence. There's little political will for peace. No one really knows where the conflict goes from here. Maybe a third intifada, maybe the Palestinian Authority collapses. But everyone agrees that things as they are now can't last much longer. Israel's occupation of the Palestinians is too unstable to last, and that unless something dramatic changes, whatever comes next will be much worse.
And weirdly enough, this was rightfully predicted. Something much worse, which is today happening, because this was from 2016. And, so yeah, what are your thoughts, gentlemen? Also, where did Nick go?
Oh, my thoughts about this is that they didn't mention also, the assassin, Yigal Amir, was he was connected to extremist nationalist sentiments and groups in Israel, and it is also rumored that he was connected to Likud and the party of Netanyahu.
Yeah, and also drastic measures. Yeah, the Israel-Palestine is guaranteed to know at least 50% of our audiences. Yeah, found out that at my live stream, not returning.
Yeah, because I'm going to be hated by both sides, because I think that both sides are bad. Yeah. But I do generally feel a bit that since Israel has the most of the power in this conflict and these relations, I do focus a little bit more on them. Yeah, but I will admit it, there is no good side in this conflict.
Yeah, and also, this is a good, and I think I covered this in my last stream too. Constant settlement rebuilding in West Bank, even during negotiations, really helped poison. And I think, I did this. I think you and we did comment on the West Bank settler gangs. The settler violence actually was on the rise in our last stream. If you guys have watched that, there was a lot of rise in settler gangs and settler violence, which was targeting civilians. They might have put it. Yeah, this could have been a process. And also, yes, this also happened too. Hamas kept sending suicide bombers. Yeah, it's this also. Yeah, but definitely the settlements kind of made the process worse. Yeah, this is the civilian. Like civilians are the only good side at this point. Like, this is the only side that I would agree with. Yes, I know. Damn it, Nick. But yeah, there's always, I think this is where people, is it, 1 second. Why is my computer? There we go. Yeah, so this is where it's one of those like highly emotional topics. So I do agree. And also, like, we're just covering the facts today. I have to reiterate again and again. We're just covering what we're given the facts. And
I mean, the issue here, there is a covert conspiracy from both sides in this story. Yes, both sides have various conspiracies against, a peace settlement, because the issue is that these extremists have I wouldn't even say that they are the majority in either case, in either side, but they have the power to set the agenda.
Yes,
because no matter what you if you like it or not, they have a lot of the capital of violence in this conflict, and they also have extrajudicial power. For example, I mean, the fact that Rabin was elected didn't face these people that assassinated him or celebrated his assassination. They don't care about if the majority of Israeli citizens actually wanted a peace settlement or not. The important thing was that there was no peace settlement, that they continued to expand.
Yeah, and I think this is what worsened, exacerbated the conflict too. But here's something I wanted to also present to you guys. Israel has expanded its quote unquote conflict towards Syria as well as Lebanon. So I think this is this article was from of course, Halloween. How violence in Syria is connected to the Israel-Hamas war, because the Syrian war was at a stalemate for a time, but could Syria's dictator and his Russian ally using Gaza crisis as a cover to commit war crimes?
Definitely.
Yes.
I do suspect that if this is a golden opportunity for Assad to actually, begin to use the methods that otherwise would be condemned when everyone is focusing upon the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Yeah, and the Syrian survivor, there was a Russian airstrike at the camp. So this is a Russian airstrike that happened on October 24th. There was aerial bombardment by Russian planes that devastated the small encampment. So Russian plane aimed directly between tents. They were fabric tents. More than 10 of them were just pulverized. Strike was obviously intended to kill as many people as possible, he lamented. So this is from a survivor of the strike, that is. And this is not only the recent airstrike on civilian in northern Syrian areas controlled by those who oppose the regime of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. During the first half of October, the volunteer group Syrian Civil Defense Forces, also known as the White Helmets, say they responded to 194 attacks in northwestern Syria. So far, 62 people have been killed and 230 civilians have been injured, the White Helmets said, with around 67,000 displaced as they've tried to flee to safety near the Turkish border. So, this is David Carden from the United States Humanitarian Coordinator saying, we've had the most significant escalation of hostilities since 2019. So, in 2023, right now in October, it has escalated. We've heard reports of infrastructure being damaged, including homes. We've heard 13 health facilities being damaged. My message is, no matter, it is very important to ensure that civilian infrastructures are protected. Was witnessing the largest escalation. Syrian activists also said that Russia and Syria have been, again, using weapons banned under international law, including incendiary weapons like napalm and white phosphorus and cluster munitions. The UN is investigating this. And then it talks about, there was bombs in Idlib. Yeah, so why did the violence escalate? The current spike in violence seems to have started on October 5th. So this started before the Hamas attack. This was 2 days before the Hamas attack. This was an attack on a graduation ceremony at Homs, in a military academy, central district, which are controlled. Drones laden with explosive in a courtyard where families had gathered for ceremony. Up to 120 were killed. The drones had likely come from a nearby opposition-held areas, and the attack was considered notable because of the drones that have been used, because it was the first major breach of Syrian government security in several years. The Syrian government responded with increased aerial bombardments of opposition-held territories in the northwest. They have continued throughout the month. The Turkish military has also been bombing the opposition-held areas in the northeast. The Human Rights Watch explained that the Turkish bombing was in response to an October 2nd suicide attack on the entrance of the Interior Ministry in the Turkish capital, Ankara, injuring 2 policemen. Now, the suicide attack was claimed by a group affiliated with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, which is considered a terror organization by the EU and the US, among others. Turkey believes that the Kurdish group running northeastern Syria is close to PKK, which is why it is bombing there. So there is escalation. Now, they also talk about why it's related, how it is related to the Israel-Gaza. This because it happened before the militant attack in Israel and Israel's retaliation, but that doesn't mean that the spate of violence is completely unrelated. The initial driver has been appears to have been the attack on Homs military, which happened before Hamas's attack on Israel. This undoubtedly increased domestic pressure on Assad to take even a harder line. It also seems likely that Assad regime is trying to take advantage of current international focus on Israel and Gaza to intensify the attacks. Along with other Arab leaders, the Syrian government has condemned ongoing attacks on Gaza, but Barnes Daisy suggests it may also see an opportunity to better sell its own narrative that is responding to terrorism in the same manner as Israel. Attack on medical centers. It's kind of similar to like what Israel's doing by Assad government. Was happening before Gaza. We've been living there for years, but it's also true that this regime will try to take advantage. There's also similarities because we have 4.5 million people live in opposition areas, and then there's the presence of militant group Hezbollah in Syria, the Shiite political party or the Shia political party militant group based in Lebanon, but has been fighting on behalf of Assad, which is an ally of one of the Hezbollah's main backers, Iran. Pinero also noted that its airstrikes that disabled Syrian airports. Again, there were Israeli airstrikes that disabled Syrian airports in Aleppo and Damascus also had an impact on the deliveries of humanitarian aid. So Israel has also been attacking parts of Syria, especially Aleppo and Damascus. They ostensibly hit Syrian airports to prevent more fighters or weapons reaching Hezbollah in Syria. Hezbollah also considered a terrorist organization by the US, Germany, and several Sunni Arab countries, while EU lists it as an armed wing, its armed wing as a terrorist group. Now, they talk about the crisis, the long-standing lack of fundamental respect for humanitarian law. So yeah, they talk about how this conflict is related. But I'll also talk about where is this?
Sorry, you're cutting out a lot right now, Mose. Mose.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You were cutting out.
Oh yeah. No, I think I was there was an what do you call it? There was something that was just blocking me.
It happened after you had read the article, so
yeah.
You do not have to redo that, but still.
Syria. Yes. So, so this is reported by Bloomberg. I also followed by I'll read 3 different articles from 3 different sources. The link here for which specific link we were talking about, for which the articles themselves or for the videos. Just let me know, Christy. Okay. Share screen. Okay, so we also have, and Ginny, this is your favorite topic, Russia. Israel's fight with Iran proxies in Syria poisons Russian ties. So Israel has stepped up its Syria strikes and isn't always warning Russia. And the strikes may also turn Syria into a new front of the Israel-Hamas war. Oh, Ginny.
I'm not looking forward to if Russia and Israel get dragged into a conflict.
Yeah, especially since it went to war with Hamas. Israel stepped up strikes against Iran-backed militias in Syria have moved close to the Israel border. The development comes with a new shift in Israel. It no longer always tells Syria's patron Russia in advance about the attacks. And as a general rule, Israel isn't informing Russia before it strikes in Syria. Russian Deputy Minister Mikhail Bogdanov said Friday, according to the we find out after they happen. And the change is worsening already troubled relations between Israel and Russia. And there's a danger of Syria emerging as a new front for this war, a situation where the US and regional allies are trying to avoid as they seek to contain the conflict. The tensions are already high on Israel's border in Lebanon, where Hezbollah's base exchange fire with the Israeli military on the daily basis. The spillover to Syria, I almost said Russia there. Syria is not just a risk, it's already begun, according to United Nations. So I actually read this, like, it's already begun. They've already started spilling into Syria. So and again, I'm also thinking like this could also be like Israel's ambitions too to come into Syria, gain some territory. Over the last decade, it was like a global, like again, I think Ginny, you were talking about how the other conflicts in the Middle East have been, at least in terms of like numbers, been far worse. Do you think the Syrian conflict is worse?
Yes, I do think it's far worse.
Yeah. U.S. has almost 1,000 troops there to counter Islamist extremists, and Turkey is fighting the Kurdish groups. This is going to be like Syria Part 2 all over again. This is what it looks like. So Israel struck a weapons depot, Syria based in the south, while Iranian officers and operatives from Hezbollah are embedded with the Syrian forces. They killed more than a dozen Syrian soldiers. Even though there has been conflict before, Israel did not notify in advance. And yeah, there was the airport attacks. Israel for years has struck targets. And this was not the first time, though. Israel has been in Syria during the Syrian conflict as well, too. Since the Russia intervened, it's coordinated with Israel to ensure their forces don't clash or mistakenly fire on each other since 2015. But now, this might collapse. So this Hamas and Hezbollah receive extensive training from Iran. They're both designated as terror groups. Yeah, this is all like U.S. has moved 2 aircraft. So this in itself is sort of like a sign for the escalation of like Russia is also very happy to both stand back and get out of the way and watch the chaos unfold. Also quite happy to facilitate the chaos. Jesus. And yeah, the U.S. isn't better either. Russia has hooked up with Iran all the way because we've become dependent on Iran on what he said. So Manuel Traidenberg, the executive, the Tel Aviv says they don't like the Russian-Iranian alliance as well too. So this in itself is quite a precarious situation for the region itself. So
yes, I mean the problem is that Russia will support any regime that is against the United States and that can support them in their territorial conquests in Europe.
Yeah. Yes.
And thus, you know, they will ally with Iran and do things in Syria and anything that can prop up their influence.
Yeah. And, you know, it has been quite...
and sorry if I'm saying this, but I'm still viewing Russia as a bigger threat than Iran or, you know, this Palestine-Israel conflict for global.
Yeah,
Iran is. They make it seem they're like Russia is the junior partner to Iran. It isn't. It's the other way around.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like you still get helped even by your weaker allies.
Yeah. Also, Christy, yes, I'll try to. I have all the. I'll send the link. This one was this about? Actually, I'll just put the links of the articles themselves. Also, yeah, what happened to Shahed? Yeah, not Shadid, Shahed. Yeah,
he dropped off for some reason.
Dropped off due to the what do you call it? Could be an internet issue. I'll just message them saying, "You guys dropped out because of internet." Okay, the one was this the one before the one I just read? Which is there's a few. Well, let's have to book in. God damn it. 1 second. 1 second. Let me just share these. Da, 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 da. Where did I? Again, I just need to know which one.
Try
So that,
to post all the articles.
yeah. Okay, you know what? I'll post all the articles. I'll post the command C.
Can you also click up the Baudrillard's comment here?
All right, 1 second. I'll just put a link. Oh, from DW. Okay. From DW. Yes.
The Baudrillard's comment here.
Yeah,
It was Russian pogroms that caused the Houthi Zion movement that aimed at furthering settlements in the mid 1800s. Yes, it is. That's true. Russian pogroms were, and the intensification of anti-Semitism in Russia, with, for example, the release of the Protocols of Zion, a forgery used to, besmirch Jews and their, it is anti-Jewish propaganda, pretty much. Was released in Russia by the Tsarist regime in order to canalize sentiments away from revolutionary feelings into hatred towards Jews. So it is even written by the secret services of the Russian Empire that was what they were doing. They were trying to make the Jews the scapegoats so that a revolution in Russia wouldn't happen.
Yeah, the Protocols of Zion is also was used by a lot of
I mentioned them. Most I just mentioned it.
Yeah, Arab leaders use that as propaganda tool as well.
Yeah, but I meant that it originally was propaganda from the Russians. It was created by Russian secret services in order to create anti-Semitism and hatred towards Jews by besmirching Jewish culture and Jewish, the Jewish people as being, these cabal of people conspiring against, the world. Because they wanted to make people hate the Jews instead of hating the Russian Tsarist regime. Because remember, in the middle of the 19th century, you have a lot of people feeling that Russia is being backwards. And they have seen the revolutions that have happened in Europe, especially first you have the revolution in France with the first French Revolution, and then afterwards you have the revolutions of 1848. Thus, the Tsarist regime in Russia was extremely, unstable and felt that it was threatened. So they canalized all propaganda towards anti-Semitism in order to divert these feelings of rage against the leadership towards Jews instead.
Yeah.
And it's even written that was the plan by Tsarist intelligence services, that we need to make people hate the Jews so that they do not begin to hate the Tsar.
Oh, wow.
And
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Also, you also had an anarchist assassination of one of the Tsars in the middle of the 19th century too. So you had a lot of things that were unstable even before the Russian Revolution, which happened later in the 20th century,
Oh, for sure. And what happened to the Tsars, then we kind of know what happens to the Tsars. And
yeah, in the during the revolution, but the thing is that there was so much boiling. It's just
it was years of build-up for sure. Years.
Yeah, and it was more than a century of built-up frustration.
Oh, what it was for centuries? You're saying?
Well, what did a century of built-up frustration against the Tsars in Russia? So it's not, surprising that it resulted in the Russian Revolution and all the chaos and utter bloodshed that happened there. It wasn't just, it was only due to them being communists. No, it was due to various factors that had I mean, the entire structure was so archaic, so prone to not give in to any demands for reform, that, you know, it had done everything in order to remain an absolutist monarchy to the very end, that it, you know, it just collapsed in such a way that it could not have collapsed in any way but total
And now
total collapse and bloodshed.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. Also, by the way, there's also, I wanted to share about Jordan as well. Again, remember, Jordan used to occupy the West Bank before the king kind of pulled away from the West Bank in the 70s. And also, like, he's only been giving temporary passports to Palestinians, but rather would not give them citizenship. Now, Jordan has requested...
The Jordanian king, by the way, is still the Sharif of Masjid al-Aqsa.
Really? So it's technically under his control?
Yes.
Interesting. So Jordan has a request for Patriot air defense from Washington, and it's reflecting a growing concern being caught in the crossfire if the war of Gaza pulls in Iran and its well-armed regional militias on the kingdom's border. So they are concerned with their neighbors, Syria and Iraq, both states where Iranian proxies operate, also sits next door to Israel and Israel-occupied West Bank. It has watched Israel's war against Palestinian group Hamas, another Iranian ally, with rising alarm. King Abdullah has spoken bluntly about his fears that the conflict could trigger a new displacement of Palestinians into the kingdom, already home to a large population of Palestinians dispossessed from their land when Israel was created in 1948. So there is a large number of Palestinian origin Jordanians who do.
And they were also involved, and also the part of the Palestinian diaspora in Jordan was also involved in a previous coup against the ruling family before. So there is also that bad blood that exists in the past. So this isn't good. I mean, people always think that the Arabs in the Arab world are all the same people. They really aren't. They are divided by states. They are divided by tribal, allegiances. They are divided by various religious subgroups. They are divided by a lot of things.
Yeah, and this one, it gets complicated when Jordan comes into the picture because, sure, Jordan was originally the home to a lot of East Bank because it's the east of the Jordan River. But yeah, like you said, there was the coup, so there's a lot of bad blood. Even though there are some Jordanians sympathetic, but they don't want Palestinians to become Jordanian citizens, so to speak. So after after that attempt, they stopped giving citizenship to Palestinians, and they also, like if a Palestinian man, for example, marries a woman in Jordan, she cannot give him citizenship because only a man is allowed to do that. So they have some weird rules. Again, Jordan's a little weirdly complicated. And then there's also, like you said, there's tribal issues, there's tribal allegiances. So this makes it very weird. With the former Jordan senior officials told Reuters that was now appealing for more advanced U.S. defense. Again, Jordan is an ally of the U.S. and support because of worries Iran and its proxies could become embroiled in a more deeply and wider Middle Eastern conflict. And Jordan needs these weapons to protect itself, but also in the U.S. interest and its key deterrence to Iranians. And there are a lot of U.S. bases in Jordan as well, too. So there is U.S. military presence there. But the presence of these unruly, uncontrolled militias, let's say if they start striking Israel in a widening conflict, we would be caught in the middle. The Jordanian army spokesperson, this is what they said, that he requested U.S. Patriot missiles to be deployed in Jordan. Washington last stationed the air defense system in 2013 with an escalating conflict in Syria. There was this flare. Another interesting thing that happened, there has been an increase in the drug trade in Jordan, which I was doing research on, which was a result of the Syrian war, because there was the unregulated drug trade that was happening. I expect to see a more accelerated response to long-standing requests of a whole inventory So they were bolstering defenses. They did not have more details. They said Washington was working with their manufacturer. So they're talking about, arming themselves, growing Iranian influence. So Iran's influence in Jordan's neighbor has been growing since the past 2 decades. Not surprised there. Ever since Saddam Hussein was collapsed, he allowed Shia Muslims to expand their influence there. And since Gaza erupted in a war, Iranian-backed militias have attacked U.S. forces in Iraq, including a drone attack on Iraq's Ain al-Assad air base on Tuesday. This is interesting. I actually did not know. Some of these militias did have attacked the U.S. forces in Iraq.
Yes.
So I'm surprised.
There has been more attacks against U.S. forces by various Iran-aligned militias and the alike in the Middle East recently.
Yeah,
and they think this is part of Iran or Russia's plan to draw the USA's attention away from the Ukraine war so that Russia can finish it there.
Yeah, it's definitely like, what is this? Israel took Earth from bro for intervention.
I think, according to the drastic measure, he's just a troll, so we should maybe.
All right. I was like, I saw this comment just from the corner. I'm like, what the heck is this? Okay. Okay. So adding to the mix, I think you mentioned this: the Iran versus Iran-backed Houthi group in Yemen has been engaged in a conflict with Saudi Arabia. And Iran's backed group said on Tuesday it fired missiles at Israel on several occasions in October. So even they've already been involved in this conflict, even though they already have an existing fighting that's going on with the Saudi regime and the Saudi government. So this is definitely going to get weird and interesting, and weird at the same time, and fucked up. In the area of the Red Sea, including in Israel, it downed an aerial target in the area of the Red Sea, which is located next to the Jordan's border and its city of Aqaba. Yeah, this is why Jordan's working. It's like, we're caught in the middle. Like, we need a defense system. So they're drawing up scenarios in the event that we get caught in the crossfire from any of the borders. So yeah, this is where the conflict, there's still, like, they've already started the ground invasion. We've already kind of discussed that they kind of did it's the Houthi group, that rules Yemen, and they've already fired a few rockets. Yeah, Houthi, yes. So
you even sure the sound is hard to pronounce because you might not have it in for example English, but that at least that sound exists in English, like in birth. It's Houthi.
Okay.
Oh,
Houthi.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, it's
So sorry that I'm just kind of like
you listen here, you Arabic expert, you.
yeah, but it's kind of like when you hear it get that butchered, you just feel no.
I know. My apologies. Yeah. Houthis, yes. He's been leaving comments where he pretends he can't spell before Rob first joined back, and I've never known find someone to spend 7 years of their life trolling. Oh man.
Hey, at least it's comments for the comment throne.
Yeah, at least it's a diversity in comments, not all serious comments.
I mean, and comments also drive the algorithm so that our videos will be seen more.
Yes, absolutely.
You should actually, as long as the comments are not genocidal or calling for the breaking of, various laws, other laws like drug laws and the like, then you should just point the thumb up and let them troll.
Yep, I'll point the thumb up now. Also, this is another interesting from Human Rights Watch. Asian migrant workers were victims of Hamas-led attacks. From Thailand, people of Thais account for the largest number of hostages. So the Hamas-led attacks, but migrant workers were also killed and taken hostage. Their families have been grieving from halfway around the world in Thailand, Nepal, the Philippines, and Cambodia. More than 240 people were taken hostage. After Israeli citizens, the largest number taken by Palestinian armed groups are Thai. According to the Thai Foreign Ministry, 22 Thai citizens were taken hostage, 32 were killed, and 19 injured. 10 Nepalese students working on agriculture were also reportedly killed, and 4 Filipino caregivers and 1 Cambodian student. Deliberately killing and civilians and holding people hostage are war crimes. No one should be treated as a bargaining chip, and Hamas and the Islamic Jihad should immediately safely release those. Yes, so the Islamic Jihad is also another group that is involved in this conflict. And Thailand, I actually did not know this, is the largest source of migrant labor for Israel, for about 30,000 Thais working in Israel, all of them male agricultural workers. Thousands were working on the farms on the border with Gaza when the October 7 attacks occurred. Oh boy, I hope Israel's not doing this kafala system, is it? Is it?
I don't know about Thais, but I know that they have a similar system when it comes towards Habashi Jews from Ethiopia and Ethiopians being brought over.
Oh boy. I just feel like, okay, there might be another can of worms with like maybe another form of kafala in Israel, but
I mean, it would surprise me if they have something, because I've heard something similar, but from Africans working in Israel.
Yeah, because the Thai government is offering reparations for flights for its citizens and 7,000.
And unlike a lot of the countries where immigrant workers are abused in the Gulfs,
yeah,
Israel is supposedly conceived of as being a liberal democratic nation,
right?
that is modern.
Yeah, and if they have something like this would be fucked up.
I mean, they do have something like that when it comes to black people from Africa.
Oh Jesus!
If I'm not entirely mistaken, because there were strikes in the middle of the 2010s. God, sorry.
That's okay. Have a drink.
2010s, there were strikes, and some of these strikes weren't just Habashi Jews striking about discrimination in Israel, but also other Africans that were, striking due to protest against working conditions as being migrant workers or temporary workers in Israel.
Oh damn! And also, Ginny, you're kind of right, because here Human Rights Watch says many are reluctant to leave Israel. These are Asian migrant workers because of debts they owe associated with getting their jobs in the first place.
Oh, because that was what they said. They signed contracts where they said that they would pay get a loan in order to get over there, and then they would pay it up, but the rates were so absorbent, so they could never pay it back.
Yeah, Thai workers in Israel, now it's also adds, experience low pay, excessive working hours, and hazardous working conditions in Israel, as Human Rights Watch has previously documented. So this is
so this is the same thing as they did with the Africans before.
Yeah.
Of course, Israel will do this. I mean, this what shocks me most is that a lot of Israel is not every Israeli, because there is a lot of Israelis coming from from the Middle East and Africa as well. But most Israelis in Israel, if you join all European Sephardi Jews and all European Ashkenazi Jews in Israel, they are a majority, and these are people coming from Europe, and they act like this,
right?
It's like the worst excesses of. This is why people say that Israel is colonial, because this is how Europeans acted in their colonies.
Yeah,
a lot.
And not only that, like it's like this is the reason now I used to like hate the terminology apartheid or like colonial, but now they're kind of fitting the definition. It's like you're pretty much the definition, like, because it's because Thai workers are also in all over the Middle East. That is, you have workers from and you're doing the same thing as the Kuwaitis, the Qataris, and the fucking Saudis and people in Dubai as well. Like the horrible conditions. It's like, what the fuck are
Yes.
you doing? So you're becoming just like them.
Becoming.
You're
They
allowed to
were
do it.
like this from the beginning, since the state
Yeah.
established. I mean, the issue here is that, I mean, this is why I say that there is no good guy in the
Yeah.
Israel-Palestine conflict, because Israel does things like this, and they do not, and they treat the Palestinians also like this in various ways.
Yeah. So it's like Palestinians kind of like these little peasants of sorts that they see as. And again, I empathize more with Palestinian civilians.
They also there is also a case, it was years ago, but I remember a case where they discussed Palestinians that didn't want to lose their, the earth that they had worked on. So they more or less had to become indentured servants of
Yeah.
the Jews there. So they were more or less forced to still work like
Wow.
serfs, the land
Damn.
that was
Oh,
taken.
damn. Oh damn. Oh damn. Oh damn. Oh damn. Oh man, this is
Because apparently also what I've heard about Israel is that they also allow intergenerational contracts.
Oh no.
So if your father signed something, because this has been removed in most legislations in most Western countries, with the exception of certain remnants in, for example, inheritance law regarding estates and such, regarding noble families. These things even exist still in Sweden, but in most cases they have removed contracts over generations, so you cannot enter new contracts. In Israel, they still have it. So you have generational contracts where the obligations are still applied to following,
Yeah.
to the generations that are coming. And also, the Bodrio mentioned also not a good record with the Beta Israel Ethiopian Jews either. I mentioned them as being one of the groups that were abused. And yes, they have at times been denied citizenship as Jews in Israel because they aren't true Jews according to certain definitions. At times they have been allowed. So they have also, because there are sectarian and ethnic tensions between Jewish groups as well. And I'm actually pretty certain that if it wasn't for all the, the threats around Israel, Israel would have imploded as a state.
Yeah.
Because they would have begun to, do ethnic cleansings against each other.
Yeah, if there were no threats that existed, right? Yeah, they would have.
Yes.
They would have been killing. They would have eaten each other alive.
Yes, they would.
Yeah, and also, drastic. Yeah, I might also do 30 more minutes, or 20, 30 more minutes, because I did want to cover everything. I don't mind doing this slightly longer stream. I apologize, Jenny, if you need to go, you're more than welcome to.
I'll still speak. It's just that my throat is getting a bit tired from speaking all the time.
No problem, not a problem. So I'll do a lot of the talking. So this is where I will quickly cover these issues as well too. Like there is this was from the West Bank, by the way. I'll cover the West. This is why I'm covering the West Bank as well. And this is from August. So this report from the Human Rights Watch is from August 28th, long before, again, a month before, more than a month before the Hamas attack. So there was a spike in Israeli killings of Palestinian children in the West Bank, where no Hamas exists. So Israeli military border forces killing Palestinians with virtually no recourse or accountability. And I think, they said that they should end, they should end this, the border killings, that is. Last year, in the West Bank, in 15 years, Israeli forces had killed 34 Palestinian children in the West Bank. One child is too many, 34. Fuck. And, there were fatal shootings of Palestinian children. Israeli forces are gunning down Palestinian children living under occupation with increasing frequency, said the child Bill Van Esveld. Unless Israel's allies, particularly the United States, pressure Israel to change its course, more Palestinian children will be killed. Human rights researchers have documented 4 killings, interviewing persons, 7 witnesses, 9 families, other residents, lawyers, doctors, staff, and field workers at Palestinian and Israeli rights groups, and reviewed CCTV footage and videos posted on social media, statements made by security agencies, and medical records and news reports. So, Human Rights Watch investigated the case of Mahmoud al-Sadi, who was a 17-year-old, killed by Israeli forces as he walked to a school near the Jenin refugee camp on November 21st, 2020. The Israeli military did not address this killing. Specifically said its forces had been conducting arrest raids in the camp, during which they exchanged fire with Palestinian fighters. However, the nearest exchange of fire occurred at one of the alleged fighters' homes, about 320 meters away from where Mahmoud was shot, based on residents' statements. So the so-called fire exchange was away, yet this child was killed. Mahmoud stood by the side of the road waiting for sounds of shooting in the distance, but was not holding a weapon or a projectile. And witnesses said that a security camera footage video that Human Rights reviewed showed after the distant shooting had stopped, the Israeli forces were withdrawing. A single shot from an Israeli military vehicle roughly 100 meters away struck Mahmoud, witnesses said. No Palestinian fighters were in the area. The witness said Mahmoud was killed a block away from the street where Israeli forces killed the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh on May 11, 2020. So again, this was also a very controversial issue, which the Israeli military had no repercussions for. None of the officers had a repercussion for this. In other case, security forces killed boys after they had joined other youths confronting Israeli forces with stones, Molotov cocktails, or fire eggs. While these projectiles can seriously injure or kill, in these cases, Israeli forces fired repeatedly at chest level, hitting multiple children, killing children in situations where they do not appear to have been posing a threat of grievous injury or death, which is the standard for the use of lethal force by law enforcement officers under international norms. That would make these killings unlawful. So this is Muhammad Salim. There's another case of a 17-year-old after a group of friends, he was throwing rocks and allegedly Molotov cocktails at military vehicles that entered the village. 3 other children were shot. Now, you also have the case of Wadia Abu Ramaz from behind while he was with a group of youths throwing rocks. He was shot by an Israeli officer. All cases, they shot children's upper bodies without, according to witnesses, issuing warnings or using common less lethal methods such as tear gas, concussion grenades, or rubber-coated bullets. Adam Aid was a 15-year-old who was fatally shot behind the Hishreid refugee camp with a group of boys throwing stones and at least 1 Molotov cocktail. The soldier also said that it wounded a 13-year-old boy, also shot and wounded a 30-year-old boy. So the Israeli newspaper reported that in December 2020, soldiers are allowed to shoot at Palestinians who are fleeing if they had previously thrown stones or Molotov cocktails. So this is reported by the Haaretz. So Human Rights wrote to Israeli military police about questions. Police responded, but the military did not. The police rules of engagement permit use of firearms against persons who are throwing stones, Molotov cocktails, or fireworks only if there is an imminent risk to life or bodily integrity. Police has stated that they could not provide information about the case of Wadia Abu Ramaz because it was under investigation. Again, they're not gonna, talk about it.
Drastic wonders about Pakistan.
Yes. There was also the Pakistan issue. I'm gonna go to Pakistan now. Actually, let's
move to Pakistan because we have been at the Israel-Palestine issue.
Yeah, it's such a long
for
issue.
so long. Yes, it always takes time because it's a complicated issue.
Yes. So
I also wanted to just do an addendum regarding the thing I said before about Israel and the law of being intergenerational. It might have been a previous contract because I thought about this afterwards. I am not sure. It might have been a previous contract that was enforced before Israel was made as a state that are still being enforced, like some sort of serfdom contract, but I'm not sure.
Yes. This was
But
this was a story from Pakistan. Now I'm gonna what do you call it? I'm gonna focus on Pakistan. That is. So this is from Instagram, by the way, and a lot of Pakistani news outlets aren't reporting this. So today, Pakistani officials packed tens and thousands of Afghans, including women and children, into deportation containers like this, like the one you see. A bridge accident overturned the container, causing multiple casualties. Now, the Pakistani government recently announced that no Pakistani citizen or business can lease accommodations or properties to Afghan refugees. This comes after 75,000 Afghan refugees were deported in recent weeks. Additionally, a long-standing market operated by Afghan refugees was dismantled, and several Afghan owned properties were confiscated in Peshawar, which is a city in Pakistan which has a lot of ethnic Afghans. Many Afghans who had fled Taliban with the promise from Western institutions of safe refuge. With these refugees at risk due to their prior collaborations with Western entities over the past 25 years are now in uncertain circumstances, having left behind everything in Afghanistan. The Pakistani government has historically used the Afghani refugee situation and the need for humanitarian aid in Afghanistan as bargaining chips with Western institutions and as pressure tool on the governments in Afghanistan, including the group they helped to get in power, the current de facto regime, the Taliban. Last week, an Afghan cricket player dedicated his word to refugees facing the human challenges in Pakistan by their establishment. In response, Pakistan's Prime Minister mentioned that if Pakistan had won against Afghanistan in cricket, he'd want the award dedicated to Pakistani soldiers involved in deporting and torturing Afghani refugees. This stance is notable, especially given Pakistan's vocal concerns about events in Gaza, while they inflict inhuman situation and pain on Afghan refugees within their borders. So, this is why I titled this video Israel versus Pakistan, because Pakistan sets a 48-hour deadline, only 48 hours, to deport 1.7 million Afghan refugees, many of whom lived there for 2 to 3 generations. This was...
Yeah. This isn't going to go good.
And this is like the Pakistani...
No, it might only be rhetoric, and they might just deport a couple of thousands and then call it a day.
Yeah, and it's call it. Let me just see.
I mean, I'm just worried that this is the prelude to some sort of conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan due to border friction.
There could be the border friction, even though Pakistan has supported the Taliban, like the Pakistani military. And it's the irony is that Pakistan's...
Yeah, but how many times in history have it not been the case that the people that you support once turn on you?
Yeah, they turn. And then also on top of that, you kind of pretend that, oh, I care about Palestinians and blah blah blah. Like, and also like some of these comments are so hateful. Is like, yeah, someone mentioned, I love how the countries that get criticized for doing this, but we turn a blind when it comes to our just migrate to under countries. And what the fuck? Wouldn't be an issue. So weird. I love how this is, like, what do you call it? This person says, don't understand why some people are calling this illegal. The refugees were welcomed by Pakistan at the time of the Soviet. Now, when things have settled in Afghanistan, it's high time to send them back to their own country. We already have enough issues of our own to tackle. So youthiyas, again, youthia is a derogatory term for, progressives, should stop complaining, which is young student progressives. That is, there was a very derogatory term. And it's like the kind of dumb people that you would be the one, you would turn a blind eye to this. And then you're like, oh yeah, we're doing what it's correct, but and a lot of people are, how's Pakistan any different from Israel? This is good. Then there's comments like other Muslims apply to Palestinians. So yeah, let's see this. Yeah, our neighbors cried and begged for us to not to leave, says Afghan refugee. And then there's this refugee saying, I was born in Pakistan. I just heard the name Afghanistan. How is that my country? Leaving my friends here, what will I do here? And there were bulldozers that tore down Afghan houses in Islamabad, the capital. The capital. You bulldozed a lot of Afghan houses. And Afghan refugees were stranded at the border as Pakistan begins mass deportations. And they have all these ID cards. They have ID cards, but we're still being kicked out. Like, they have all the documentation. And then another refugee says, they just asked us to leave. There was no prior notice. We don't have anyone in Afghanistan, and it'll be cold there during this time of year, said Afghan refugee. And yeah, Afghanistan is much colder. Every part of Pakistan holds a special place. An Afghan refugee as he bids farewell to Pakistan. So yeah, it is very sad to see the irony of the situation. Also, another story, how they did it is also more disturbing too. Yeah, I wonder if there are any anti-Pakistan protests around the world for the forced removal of Afghan. I wonder, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
The thing is that these things might be on a global level much more overlooked, but they aren't on a local level, because these things affect Afghani people and Pakistanis. And these things are the things that usually result in things like we saw in the Balkans, conflicts that are a lot more bloody than the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Well,
these things might not directly spark a conflict, but these things are frictions that heat things up until you eventually get a conflict.
Yeah. By the way, Drastic also says, while there's a legitimate support for Palestine, it does smack a certain type of anti-Jewish sentiment. That
this is true.
People come out on protests en masse for stuff like this is against Israel. And yes, there is someone actually mentioned in, I think, one of the posts I sent that the Pakistani establishment, it doesn't care about the Palestinians. It only cares about its hate for Jewish peoples and Israel. And yeah, I know I'm not painting Israel as a victim here. No, I'm just pointing out this is this double standard. So according to this report, Omar Hedri, while many Pakistanis witness the suffering of men, women, and children, there's troubling indifference. When vast crowds can march in solidarity with causes in France, India, and Palestine, again, why is the pain of Afghani children in Pakistani prisons, the confiscation of their properties, and the profound fear they endure overlooked? Last week, hundreds and thousands marched in various cities across Pakistan in support of the Palestinian struggle. Yet, right under your noses, fewer than 100 people showed up for a protest addressing the plight of Afghans in their midst. How is the pain, imprisonment, and confiscation of property, torture, and intimidation faced by Afghans less heart-wrenching for what you compare to suffering of other struggle humans? Why is your resistance to this injustice not as fierce as the resistance you show to global injustices? Why aren't you urging your government for equitable justice right here, on your very soil you call home? Are you aware that 2 to 3 generations born and raised solely in Pakistan are now being told to abandon everything, restricted to taking no more than $200, and leaving the very land their ancestors inhabited long before it bore the name Pakistan? And again, a lot of Afghans did come and migrate here when Pakistan and India and Bangladesh were one nation. Remember, there's no such thing as an illegal refugee. This label is a concoction but of flawed institutions that arbitrarily decide who's deserving and who's not. The term illegal is foisted upon by those who simply lack the means to fulfill this so-called legality. Millions of Pakistanis live across the world, many of whom arrived in their new homes under unofficial circumstances and have since built lives, careers, and identities. Yet, many Afghans, some of whom have been in that land longer than Pakistan has ever even existed, remain without an identity and continually face these injustices. Over 100,000 are deported in just under 10 days. So again, there was also a report, Afghan refugees to U.S. Pakistani police. If there's an Afghan in your community, this was by the way, an announcement. If there's an Afghan in your area community or if you're aware of an Afghan possessing a Pakistani ID card, which is legal, contact us immediately. Your identity will remain anonymous as per Pakistani law. It's a crime to offer housing, shops, apartments, or employment to an illegal Afghan. Afghan children were arrested at schools in Pakistan and held for 45 days in prison. Yesterday, a Karachi court adds 30 days of further days of rigorous imprisonment before the deportation. So kids were taken from their schools during school days. Pakistan government, according to Human Rights Watch, using threats and abuse and detention to coerce Afghan asylum seekers without legal status to return to Afghanistan or face deportation by November 1st. Many Afghans at risk of deportation are awaiting resettlement to US, UK, Germany, and Canada. Yes, the Kufr countries are all coming to help, but no, Pakistan, the Muslims don't want to help. They even used a mosque loudspeakers to give 1.4 million refugees 24 hours. Because here's the thing, a lot of people can't read. A lot of people can't read or don't read newspapers. So they're 24 hours to leave with arrests already underway. Their establishment purported concern for Palestine is more rooted in hate towards Israel than genuine empathy for Palestinians.
I think it has less to do with, hate towards Israel and more to do with, kind of directing forces away from issues at home and to, just be a shibboleth to show, look at how much of a true believer I am, how much I support the Ummah. It's virtue signaling.
Yeah, and it's you also make this comment. Pakistan's always looking for snitches. I remember they wanted people. Yeah, there was an article that they said they wanted to people to report blasphemers, and your ID will remain anonymous. What do you call it? Yes, it's especially Pakistan has been very silent on the Uyghur issue in China, as well as Yemen. Like, Pakistan has been weirdly silent. If anything, a lot of Pakistani soldiers were deployed by Saudi Arabia to fight in Yemen because the Pakistani army gets paid by Saudi Arabia. What do you call it? Okay, another thing worth noting is that despite being a bloody, the Muslims of Yemen took the time to expel the last few Jews from the country. I don't remember the protests about this ethnic cleansing. When did this happen, Ginny? I know you were mentioning.
I haven't heard about this event, and I'm actually I usually keep abreast of what is happening in Yemen.
Yeah. Also,
so when it doesn't reach me, it's not a large news story.
Yeah. Also, dude, Abais, hey, don't report me. Don't report me. I'm already in thin ice with this country of my homeland. So this is the poster. I'll read this in order. Aapke ilaqe mein koi aisa Afghani in your area, if there's such an Afghani ho ya kisi aise Afghani ko jante ho, if you know any Afghani ke paas Pakistani shanakhti card ho, like they have a Pakistani ID card ho, to ya kanunan ye kanunan jurm hai. So this is a unlawful.
Jurm is a crime to the law, right?
Yes.
Because kanun is law in Arabic, and
Arabic as well,
jurm is infraction.
Yes.
Or jarima is a crime. So yeah, yes. It's like little crime.
Yeah, they give even the numbers of the police officers too.
But I guess it has become just crime generally in
Urdu. Yes, है, वो अफगानी गैर कानूनी है और वो आप फोन उठाएं, like pick up the phone और पुलिस स्टेशन को कॉल करो, meaning call the police station, आपका नाम खुफिया रखा जाएगा, खुफिया मीनिंग्स anonymous. हमें पाकिस्तानी के फलाह के लिए like for पाकिस्तान से एक नारा लगाएं, गैर कानूनी अफगानियों को नाम, घर, वो मकान, घर, दुकान, फ्लैट देना कानूनी जुर्म है. So you can't give them को काम देना, काम, घर, दुकान, flat. So you're not even allowed to hire someone who's of Afghan descent. You can't provide housing for them, which is, you know, even as a rental. Giving them a rental shop or a flat is, you know, illegal.
By the way, a question. Is غير قانوني actually illegal?
Yes, that's illegal. غير قانوني is
because غير is also used like that in Arabic, so it's a straight loan word from غير قانوني.
Yeah. Also, Pakistan, I'm the little shit here who makes this comment. Pakistan has the same attitude to Afghan refugees that Arab countries have towards Palestinian person born in your country yet is deported back. So many pro-Palestinian defending this goes to show the hypocrisy. And there were some comments here.
I always think it's so strange to listen to all of these languages that have been influenced by Arabic, like Urdu and the like, where they are totally unintelligible, and then suddenly, in these sentences, they use these Arabic loan words, and it's just what?
Yeah, and also, even a doctor said, I see many Afghani patients on daily. Most of them very poor. They hardly get 2 meals a day. Most of them don't have a problem with moving back to their home country, but their main concern is that how they're going to survive back home, as most of them don't even have a house back home and are not even able to afford travel expenses. I think international organizations really care about Afghan refugees, then they shouldn't give aid to Pakistani government. Instead, they should spend that money on rehabilitation of refugees coming back home, as those poor people really don't have any place to go or have no resources. So yeah, there's a lot of pushback from, you know, a lot of Pakistani, like liberal or progressive Pakistanis. So I'm glad like there's some pushback. And yeah, some people were saying any difference, because I think those people removed their comments. Any difference between Pakistanis is even worse when a Muslim country does that awful act to their own Muslims. So, you know, this was, and again, there's also like accusations that Afghans, you know, commit more crimes and whatnot. So there's a lot of racial discrimination. And yeah, there are people from the Afghani diaspora who do commit crimes, but that doesn't necessarily represent the majority.
The thing I'm also wondering is, has there been border friction between Afghanistan and Pakistan?
Let me check, actually.
Because I've heard something, because the Taliban has actually done things into Baluchistan in Iran, and done things also up north. So I'm actually beginning to guess that they are beginning to lose control about and beginning to fragment. And some of those fragments might think that it would be a good idea to, you know, go into Pakistan and do things. And if that happens, then you will get a larger conflict, and thus Pakistan might think that it would be a good idea to remove people that might, in their view, be sympathetic. I'm not excusing this. I'm just saying that this might happen. It's purely descriptive, and I am not supporting this at all.
Okay, so there is an article about the Afghani Taliban and Pakistan, once friends, are now foes. So this is an interesting title that we have here. So Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban, friends becoming foes. At first, a Taliban victory in Afghanistan was considered synonymous with Pakistan's victory. But disappointed hopes on both sides now have the neighbors at loggerheads. And this was from April of 2023. It's not only Afghanistan under Taliban leadership that has been in shambles. Neighboring Pakistan has always also been in a downward trajectory, with its security situation and economy in dire straits. According to the difficulties, while the two countries grapple with multiple crises at home, their relationship is marked with a lot of friction. So you are correct, Ginny. There is friction.
Yeah, because I know that the Taliban has had a lot of friction recently also with Tajikistan
Yes.
and Uzbekistan on the borders there in the north, and into Iran and Baluchistan there as well. So
the diplomat reported the souring of the relationship was unexpected and startling for many. Pakistan over the years was deemed Taliban's principal supporter, notwithstanding the presence of international forces in Afghanistan for decades following 9/11. But Pakistan has now gone to the extent of attributing its security woes to the assistance provided by the militants in Afghanistan, indirectly blaming Afghan Taliban. And again, they have two distinct, the Pakistan Taliban and then the Afghan Taliban. They've kind of separated. A recent report from the United States of Peace suggests that militants targeting the Pakistan state have received support from the Afghan Taliban, who are at helm of affairs since the withdrawal of international forces in August of 2021. Perhaps Islamabad did not anticipate this. At first, the Taliban victory in Afghanistan was considered synonymous, but now, owing to the history of convergence of interests between the two. How has the Taliban-Pakistan evolved against the backdrop of it? Why are they erstwhile friends are now loggerheads? So there was the Pakistan-Taliban relationship. Pakistan has always been only sympathetic to the Taliban in Afghanistan, but also the group's main patron since its inception in the 1990s. And yeah, there is a history of Pakistani army being the main, and Pakistani establishment being the main patron for the Taliban and its creation. This background contributed to the impression that policy makers in Islamabad were jubilant over Afghan Taliban's rise in power. And remember, so many Pakistanis, I remember they were celebrating this. Now it's biting you in the ass, isn't it? Despite the fears that it could be disastrous for regional peace and stability. In fact, some of the policy corridors in Islam believe it was Pakistan that has actually triumphed in Afghanistan. Following the Taliban taking over Kabul, Pakistan's then Prime Minister Imran Khan said that Afghanistan had broken the shackles of slavery, essentially eulogizing the Taliban victory. So even Imran Khan, who's in jail right now, who's the least problematic of the leaders, was so vocally supportive of the Taliban. Pakistan's then top spy was subsequently seen having a tea in a relaxed mood in Kabul. Don't worry, everything will be okay, he said to a reporter when asked about the future of Afghanistan. However, notwithstanding the Pakistan's historical intimacy with Taliban, the relationship between the two is becoming more complex than ever. Tensions have started cropping up between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban. This is primarily because both the Taliban and Pakistan view each other differently than they did prior to 9/11 and the 2001 invasion of Afghanistan. The Taliban do not want to operate as Pakistan's proxies. They no longer trust the Pakistani state, particularly its military, owing to the fact that it quickly became a foe in the wake of American pressure and went to the extent of handing over Taliban leaders to the United States. So this happened during the Musharraf regime, and Musharraf took a lot of money from the United States and posed himself as a regional ally and a strategic ally. The Taliban saw this as a betrayal, something that is unforgivable in Afghanistan's tribal Pashtun culture. Pakistan then recalibrated its policy later, reinvigorating its relationship with the Taliban, as the United States allowed Islamabad's arch-rival India to play a pivotal role in Afghanistan. The Taliban were Pakistan's bid for offsetting India's ingress into Afghanistan. So they wanted to stop Indian influence into Afghanistan. However, trust between the Taliban and Islamabad was lost, even though strategic bilateral cooperation was revived. For the Taliban, while the US forces were in Afghanistan, relations with Pakistan were restored out of political expediency and the need for sanctuaries. But the sanctuaries are no longer needed, hence there's no need for the Taliban to rely on Pakistan for survival. So Pakistan army was playing this double game, like, hey, I'm also your friend, I'm also your friend. Kind of like trying to be this a sleazeball.
I mean, to be honest, international politics in areas that have a lot of unrest, like around the Indian subcontinent, and Afghanistan and Central Asia, they are usually a place where you have to be a sleazeball, as you would put it, in order to actually succeed.
Yeah.
And I mean, international politics is anarchic at the best of times, and in those kind of situations that they find themselves in, you have to do very dirty, underhanded things sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Dee mentioned, I believe there have been border. Let me just look into it, actually. The main border crossing was closed for a minute in September.
I mean, also speak about the Taliban. There has been, discussions about them getting closer to Russia.
Interesting.
Because, Iran has kind of like previously, because Iran also borders, Pakistan, being kind of close to India.
And Afghanistan, it also borders too, Iran.
Yeah. I said that it borders both. So it's kind of like, and it's kind of like being, maybe it would be better if you're getting to this sphere instead. And you might say that, but the Taliban are Sunnis and Iran are Shia. Yes, but real politics usually supersede those things.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier, you go to the most convenient ally, generally speaking, allies of convenience that you talked about, against the immediate issue or the pressing issue.
Yeah.
And also it says here,
and I could see also if Pakistanis have been mistreating various Pashto Afghans.
Yes.
Historically, I can see why the Taliban wouldn't be a compliant servant of Pakistan and actually begin to think maybe we should begin to do something about this.
Yeah, there could be some because Taliban is kind of also a religious organization, terrorist, but also kind of also tribalistic Afghani organization.
Yeah. Because I'm the more I've seen of the Taliban and actually looked into what they state and such, I think they are less of an Islamist organization, more of a tribal alliance.
Well, keep in mind, they're still very Islamic.
Yeah. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that they are actually, a lot of their practices actually makes more sense if you look at them as a tribal group rather than as
an Islamist group. And they are an Islamist group. And
they are both. Those don't exclude each other, but I would say that they are more. If the question is about Pashto tribal allegiances or about coherence to an Islamic, ideology or philosophy, then tribal allegiances will win.
Yeah, and I think because the tribal allegiances are very important in that region. Speaking of which, he states the reason for falling out. In recent months, the souring relations between the Taliban and Pakistan can be attributed to various thorny issues. Following August 2021, the Taliban expected Pakistan to cajole the international community, particularly the Western powers, which Islamabad has remained an ally, to either offer de jure or at least a de facto recognition of the Taliban regime, so recognition of a regime. Islamabad hoped that the international community might recognize the Taliban government, provided it met certain conditions. But there is little appetite in the world to recognize the Taliban, given their notorious track record when it comes to human rights, especially women's and minority rights. Plus, Pakistan's own relations with the Western powers have soured over the last few years, and it thus never had the diplomatic muscle to convince the world to recognize Taliban. So yeah, they're kind of like, wait, I thought you were gonna introduce me to your new friends. I'm like, yeah, but my friends don't like me anymore now. So, for its part, Pakistan broadly expected the Taliban to either take some sort of concrete action against the Pakistani Taliban, because again, this is also a separate entity because they broke away from the Afghans, who are distinct from the Afghan Taliban and primarily target the Pakistani forces, or prevent them from launching attacks inside the Pakistan's territory. The Afghan Taliban kept reiterating that they would not allow anyone from their territory they hold to carry out militancy or terrorism in another state. Also, the Afghan Taliban offered their so-called good offices to facilitate reconciliation or truce between the Pakistani state and the Pakistan Taliban. This has not been borne out. In fact, the Pakistani Taliban have ramped up attacks inside Pakistan's territory in recent months. The third issue that has caused friction between by the way, back to this, Pakistan has this narrative of good Taliban, bad Taliban, like Afghan Taliban good, Pakistani Taliban bad, and it's just, or sometimes it's vice versa. It's weird, and it's like there's no such thing as good or bad. Like they're both bad. There's no such thing as good Taliban. They're both bad. The third issue that caused the friction is the Afghan-Pakistan border, and I think you were mentioned that there could be a border issue. The Taliban, like all preceding Afghan governments, remain unwilling to recognize the Durand line as the border between the two countries. So the Durand line is what's supposed to separate the country. In fact, there has been a series of skirmishes along the border between the Pakistani military and Taliban forces, a development that has astonished many. You were right. There were skirmishes around the Durand line itself, which was the Pakistan.
This doesn't surprise me at all. This was why I said I'm certain there are border skirmishes between, because I've always felt, considering, like I've heard, I didn't know this about the Durand line, but everything else I've heard about both the Taliban and about Pakistan. I just thought this isn't good. Peace between, this alliance of convenience isn't going to last.
Oh yeah, this was an alliance of convenience, and yeah, it wasn't going to last because of the border itself too, over territories. This has been coupled with the allegations that U.S. drones targeting suspect terrorists in Afghanistan might be flying from bases in Pakistan. Again, this is an accusation. Following the U.S. drone strike that killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul last year, the Taliban emphasized that Pakistan was allowing the use of its airspace for such strike and was thus complicit. Moreover, in a veiled threat to Islamabad, the Taliban warned of bad consequences. Pakistan denies allowing use of its bases or airspace for U.S. drone strikes inside of Afghanistan. I'm not going to be surprised if Pakistan actually does allow the U.S. to use some of its airspace. Another decisive factor that might considerably degrade Pakistan's relationship with the Taliban could be the group extending unprecedented overtures to India. To this end, Mullah Yaqub, all-powerful defense minister of the Taliban regime and Taliban founder Mullah Omar's son, expressed a willingness to send Afghan personnel to India for military training, saying his government will not have an issue with it. Does this herald a game changer in the Taliban-Pakistan-India matrix? Only time will tell. Islamabad nurtured the Taliban to balance India's clout, after all. Again, they wanted to use the Taliban against as a sort of like the attack dogs on India so that they don't have to get their hands dirty. Because again, Pakistan knows that the Indian military, they cannot clash heads with the Indian military. The Indian military is far superior to the Pakistani military in terms of manpower, weapons, and monetary finances. The relationship between Afghan Taliban and Islamabad is more complex and tense than ever. Jenny, your favorite word, complex.
It is very complex, but this is also kind of predictable despite its complexity. In that, if you think about it, the Taliban are on the borders of Pakistan, not so much on the border. They have beef with Pakistan, if anything. Why should they attack India?
Yeah, exactly. So they would be more concerned with their immediate borders rather than India. So, like Pakistan planned to use, and they did send some militants to Kashmir as well. So, like they were thinking of trying to take Kashmir with the help of the Taliban from India, and this has backfired on them.
Yeah, but if you look at the geography, the Taliban's natural enemy would, in all likelihood, be Pakistan rather than India.
Oh yeah, considering that there's border issues with Balochistan and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or northwest borders, that is.
Yeah, and the fact that they all actually denounced and officially, actually, because there was a section of the Taliban that actually went into Iran, and they actually withdraw and said officially, this group doesn't belong to us. We distance ourselves from it.
Right.
Shows that at least they are probably, and that they are not doing the same with these groups that are doing it towards Pakistan. It's showing that they are probably turning eastward rather than westward.
Yeah. And I think...
Or they are turning also north, because they are doing things in the north in...
Tajikistan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there has been some tensions with Tajikistan as well.
But I mean, I think that there they will probably face, because they will probably have issues expanding north, but
yeah,
it will probably be easier to expand east, and then after that north, than it would be to expand south and west into Iran. I think that Iran has that area, better covered than...
Yeah, than Pakistan. Because again, Iran is Iran's, well, not only border-wise, but also I think military-wise. Iran would also...
Military-wise, border-wise, also with the populations there.
Yeah, they would give them a harder time. And also terrain, too.
Yeah, there's a reason why almost all Persian empires look the same. It's because they do evolve around the same geography.
Yeah.
And believe me, traditionally, it hasn't been people from Afghanistan. Sure, you do have some dynasties actually coming from the area of Afghanistan into Persia, making a Persian empire. But mostly, it has been, the Persian empire having the areas of Afghanistan in the empire, not the other way around.
Oh, yes. Because, like, Afghanistan, when they used to say, this was this myth corroborated, I think it was corroborated by Pakistani media, or it was corroborated by somebody in Afghanistan, saying that Afghanistan is like the graveyard of empires. This was not true at all, because...
No. It's the backyard of the Persian Empire.
Yeah, because you're ruled by the Persians for centuries. Centuries. And not only
I would even say, no. It's not even centuries. If you go for all the Persian dynasties, we are talking millennia.
Yeah, you were over a millennia. If you the Achaemenids, the Seleucids, you have the what do you call it? Even during Babylonian.
The Pahlavi Parthians. You have the Sassanids.
Yeah.
You have
even the
you have the Samarids after the Abbasids. You have a lot of then you have all of these other. I'm not that good at Persian dynasty names, but you have a lot of dynasties that actually do arise there after the chaos in Samarra and after the Abbasids collapse. And many of them, I know that one of them actually started in Afghanistan, but then moved its capital to, into the Persian heartland. So, you also have that, but it has always been integrated into the Persian world.
Yeah, or even just the Kabul region has been kind of also integrated into India as well, too. Because keep in mind, the Mughals, even though they were from Kabul, the Kabul area, became more Indian. So Kabul remained as part of the Mughal Empire, but it became, after the Akbar time, it was mostly mainland India that was in control of the region rather than the other way around. Because
it also depends upon which parts of Afghanistan we are talking about. Certain parts of it in the the West have almost always been part of Persian empires. Some parts in the East have been more of, but I mean, the Persians have expanded into the Indian subcontinent at times as well. So
Yes. Like especially under Darius and before even Cyrus too. Like the Persians expanded into India, like Pakistan region. Most of Pakistan was under the Persians. So
I mean, most of Afghanistan was under the Safavids.
Yes.
It's just like, I mean, the majority of the areas were under the Safavids, in fact, and then some parts of it were under, including Kabul, under the Mughal.
Even
but I mean,
modern Iran.
But again, Afghanistan is usually the backyard of a Persian Empire.
Yeah,
it is not the place. It's less of a place where empires die. It has been an integral part of many Persian empires.
Yes. Oh yes, yes. So this myth has been like, it ended the British Empire. No, it didn't.
It has also made empires. I mean, just
because keep in mind, even the British Empire was able to have its stronghold because it actually did capture Afghanistan. So the British
the Samanids.
Yes, the Samanids.
The Samanids, one of those breakup states after the chaos in Samarra, did start in Afghanistan.
Yes, the Samanids did.
Though they were centered in but they did actually move to Khorasan, which is in Uzbekistan, I think, right now.
Yes. So they were more, became more Persianized.
I mean, the Persian world was actually enormous in the past. Did you know that you actually, the Sarmatians? Have you heard about them?
I haven't. Sarmatians?
Sarmatians.
I've heard of them. Yes.
They were a steppe people that were active in Ukraine. They were an Iranic-speaking people.
Interesting. So they're originally from the Iranian. I'm guessing the
No. It's the other way around. Guess who moved southwards originally? That created the first Persian dynasty.
So people from Eastern Russia and the Balkans.
People from what is modern day Russia and Ukraine were Iranic speaking peoples that moved downwards.
Interesting.
So I mean, this happened in very during the end of the Bronze Age, but still.
Yeah, and I think were they part of the there was also this extinct race called the Scythians as well too, but again that's a different discussion.
Scythians are also Iranics, were also Iranic speaking peoples.
Yeah, but anyway, back to the topic. Diverse so much, it's interesting. Okay.
The first Iranic speaking peoples that moved gun actually created during the Bronze Age the Median Kingdom, which are the forefathers of modern day Kurds and some other peoples that are related to them.
Also, Ginny, back to the article.
Oh, sorry, I'm just getting into history, and then I will begin to rant on long rants about migrations and other stuff.
Yeah. Now, with militants ratcheting up attacks in Pakistan, it is imperative to ensure Pakistani Taliban (TTP) fighters do not use Afghanistan as a launching pad. If the attacks continue, Islamabad might contemplate launching airstrikes or hot pursuit missions inside Afghanistan's territory, something that can be counterproductive and detrimental to regional peace. Meanwhile, for the Taliban regime, Pakistan is still the most important external actor. Lack of Islamabad supports means lack of stability in Afghanistan. Any sustained economic growth in Afghanistan will also require close cooperation with Pakistan. Both states thus need to tread carefully. A prosperous future demands inclusive speed and decision-making that is synced with modern socio-political realities at a global level. The international community should also facilitate cooperation between Islamabad and Kabul insofar as both countries could be nudged away from their recent past. And now, what we just covered is that they just deported so many Afghan refugees and they might send them into Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is like, you're just sending them to their deaths pretty much. So, and this is going to worsen the relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And you were saying something, Jenny?
And this was why I said before that this might actually ignite a conflict that is way more bloody than what the conflict in between the Israelis and the Palestinians, because this conflict does not have all of these forces on all the sides trying to prevent, mass murder, because there is actually a lot of political pressure on the Israeli government to not commit genocide from the outside, because everyone looks at them right now, which hinders kind of the worst atrocities. That is not the case in this conflict.
Yep. And again,
out of sight, out of mind, as the saying goes.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind situation. And yes, the Taliban has spoken about these deportations. So this is an article from the Afghan private, like the Taliban appealed to Afghan private sector to help those fleeing Pakistan's mass deportation drive. Yeah, they don't have money of their own. So appeal to the Afghanistan private sector to help people fleeing Pakistan's mass deportation drive. Pakistan is arresting and expelling foreigners. It says that in their country are illegally, but the policy mostly affects Afghans because they're the biggest group of undocumented foreigners in the country. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry in Kabul urged Afghanistan's private sector to step forward and help. Again, because Taliban doesn't have any resources, because the Taliban had made a similar plea last month after devastating earthquake killing thousands and flattening entire villages. Yeah, they're already are asking Afghanistan's wealthy compatriots to help survivors and affected communities. Nobody from the Taliban administration was available for comment on Saturday. So it's like there's so much literally the Afghanistan's private sector is helping them is going to be able to help them, not the Taliban government. And also they just had an earthquake too, so you're kind of returning into shambles pretty much. Afghans forcibly expelled from Pakistan are facing the worst situation of their lives with no opportunities, the ministry said. The ministry invites the private sector to take action because of the profound humanitarian disaster caused by forced migration of hundreds and thousands of poor and needy. It is the duty of Islam and the Afghans to stand up for their fellow countrymen. Afghanistan is overwhelmed by challenges, including years of drought, a beleaguered economy, and an aftermath of decades of war. Millions are already internally displaced, raising concerns among the humanitarian community about the impoverished country being unable to support and integrate those leaving Pakistan. Yeah, this is going to cause a massive, massive problem. Taliban social media accounts have shown senior officials at the Torkham border in East Nangarhar province shaking hands with the returning Afghans and welcoming them home. Temporary camps are providing people with food, shelter, healthcare, according to Taliban authorities. As many as 250,000 Afghans left Pakistan before October 31st deadline to leave voluntarily expired. Tens and thousands are heading to the border areas fearing detention and deportation as Pakistani security forces go door to door searching for undocumented foreigners. Aid agencies have scrambled teams to border areas, describing chaotic and desperate scenes among returning Afghans. People told Save the Children they have nowhere to live or money or to pay for food, rent, or transport after crossing the border. Some Afghan children born in Pakistan are in Afghanistan for the first time. And it's like nobody gets to, it's like if you're born in a country, you should become a citizen of that country. The deportation drive marks a spike in tensions between Pakistan and Taliban. Pakistan says Afghans are responsible for carrying out suicide attacks in the country and accuses Taliban for harboring such militants. Taliban denied the allegations. On Friday, senior Taliban figures again condemned Pakistan for its anti-migrant crackdown. They called the policy cruel and one-sided and demanded that Afghans be treated with respect and dignity. The Taliban's defense minister in Kabul, Mohammad Yaqub Mujahid, issued a warning to Pakistan. Oh dear. Pakistan should face the consequences of its actions and reap what it sows, he said. What's going on right now will have a negative impact on relations of both countries. So this is, the situation of Pakistan and Afghanistan. We'll cover this dude later next time. This fucking dude. But yes, so they have commented on the situation itself. Yeah, I know. Yeah, door to door they were actually going. So it was kind of like a massive deportation. This was 48-hour to 24-hour notices too. So it's like people, they were announcing on mosque speakers and whatnot. So it's kind of like a mass drive away. And then like you have shit like this, like the like again, the hypocrisy I'll expose to you guys now is of the Pakistani government. So this person's like finally someone taking a spine.
With Israeli bombs that are there for 20 days against the helpless Palestinian people, with 7,000 men, women, and small children, half of them children, killed by Israel in the last 20 days, 17,000 injured, 1.1 million Palestinians displaced. The enormity of the crimes that are being committed by Israel against the Palestinian people are so great and enormous that it is amazing that when my friend from Canada insists on naming the organization Hamas, that he does not feel the need for the equity and balance and fairness for which Canada is so well known. He does not feel the need to name Israel for killing 7,000 Palestinians and injuring 17,000. Only Hamas. Is this balance? He says what needs to be named has to be named. We believe Israel needs to be named. If you are fair, if you are equitable, if you are just, you will not blame one side and not the other. And if you were to go back to the issue of who started this, we all know who started this. It is a 50 years of Israeli occupation and the murder and killing of Palestinians with impunity that started this. When you push a people into the corner, they will respond. This is what the Secretary General said. It did not happen in a vacuum. And look at the reaction that came from the Israeli representative, insulting the Secretary General, calling for his resignation. They can't face the truth. They can't face justice. They can't face the fact that the crime has originated with the Israelis. The Israeli occupation is the original sin in this case. It is not what happened on the 7th of October. That is a proximate cause. But the real cause is the occupation of Palestine. The situation.
So
this is kind of like complicated because I would say that the original sin in this case actually goes back even further, and it is hard to actually talk about original sin in this conflict in certain ways. But I would say that the Nakba is probably the original sin, and the establishment of Israel in the first place. But that is so far past this that you can't really blame the modern Israelis for that. And since that, there has been constant conflict between both sides, various crimes and such. And his statement about these things, even if we, grant him some leeway due to the very simplistic nature of it, I would say still, even if Pakistan would be very hypocritical considering everything that happens now, it still does not change the fact that they have a point here.
Yeah, this is
in
where
that both
Yeah.
We need to keep conflicts separate, and we can't just say, even if Russia were to like, we usually say it when they condemn, for example, Israel's brutality. We say, "Oh, but Russia is doing it." Yes, and just because you're a hypocrite does not mean that you do not have a point.
Yeah, and keep in mind though, this would be applying whataboutery. Though to be fair, I would say that like the minister here is correct, but Pakistan's overall position is like there are a lot of double standards. There's so many double standards.
Yeah, but that's still.
Yeah.
I would say that
They're
is
not wrong.
correct, even if I would argue that the original sin even goes far further back
Yeah.
and not just the recent occupation. But that's just a complicated matter. Sorry, I'm going into my historian mode.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Historical analysis mode.
Yeah, and I think there's also the issue of, you know, like you mentioned, we went over the Ottomans as well too. Like we also went over how the Ottomans also contributed to the mess itself, and there's someone even asked me like, why Pakistan's the only Muslim country that has nuclear weapons? Why doesn't it go fight Israel or fire nuclear weapons at Israel? And I looked at them
because politically wise, it wouldn't, make sense.
Yeah, and also I'm like, first of all, nuclear weapons, this is not the nuclear weapons of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These are modern 70 plus years of advancement of said nuclear weapons. On top of that, there's a wider scale that it can influence these weapons. And even if there are civilians not affected, people will die of radiation poisoning afterwards.
Yeah, it would also be suicidal, because if Pakistan does that,
yes,
then they are going to get messed up by every other state that decides, no, we aren't going to allow you to actually use nukes like this without punishment.
Yeah, and other states are going to respond, and plus there's going to also be a huge damage to the environment all around too. The air,
yes,
the ecology, everything will be damaged. So this is not a wise, and again, I don't blame people for thinking this simplicity, but it's like we got to stop simplifying these issues. It's a little complicated.
Yeah, this is a problem with people nowadays. They want everything into small, bit-sized explanations and fast slogans that can help them understand the political situation or help them decide who to support just quickly, because everything, we live in TikTok times.
Yeah, and again, someone like me has been banned from TikTok, by the way, 7 times because I made fun of
fast food politics.
Yeah,
it's bad for you.
Yeah.
Just like fast food is bad for you.
Yeah, fast food. This is a new terminology you should coin. Fast food politics. Literally, should be called fast food politics, or even religion, fast food religion too. Like, there's so many religious and political posts which intertwine, by the way, and they influence like the TikTok views. That is, they get a lot of those views, and it's like within 30 seconds, 1 minute. It's like you can't exactly condense this info in 1 minute. This is not possible. Like, you need a proper discussion about this, and I kind of worry sometimes that we're probably gonna have a way like. I feel bad for Gen Z, like getting exposed to this. Not gonna lie, I feel bad for Gen Z.
I remember, because I'm like this millennial, like very just before the internet became
a
common occurrence in every household.
I'm more.
I remember I was very small at that time, but I still remember that the coming of the internet changed things a lot.
Yeah, things have changed a lot, and even the politics has changed a lot too because of the advent of the internet and how news is like consumed, and how the formula has been used as well. Sure, there's propaganda as well too, that has also ramped up as well. Both information and misinformation is common.
And the spread of memes, the spread of the DNA of the soul, which in this case means the spread of DNA viruses.
Yeah. I love how you consider memes DNA viruses. So, but yeah, I think we've hit the what do you call it? The 3 hour mark.
3 hour mark. We have been at it for a long time.
Yeah, no, we discussed, just to summarize, we discussed the Israel-Palestine issue. We discussed the Pakistan-Afghanistan issue as well in the last hour. But the first 2 hours, we focused on the Israel-Palestine. I apologize, it went a little long, but this needed to be done because a lot of things happened.
For this. You own me for this.
I know. I owe you for this. I owe you even content for this. I mean, I should prepare something for you to help your channel.
You owe me. You owe me for this. You owe me so much.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, in practice, you apparently own me. Considering that you're for, you're dragging me into this like I'm your intellectual slave. I endure this shitty work discussing this.
Oh man, but Jinny, hear me out.
Yes,
I'm gonna be I'm anticipating a lot of refugee crisis and claims in Canada as well. And again, because I work in refugee law, this is going to be a lot. I'm anticipating it. I'm like, oh dear, this is going to be a lot of work. So my apologies. And even recently, there's more applications. So it's like I've been working a lot too. So my apologies for being on a week hiatus or 2 weeks, alternate weeks. So I apologize for this. But yeah, by the way, guys, I am going to give a link to Jinny's channel. This is Culture Jinny's channel. Do check out his channel, please. I'm giving him a big shout out. And also, thank you so much, Jinny, for helping me in this complex topic. I know Nick and Shahid messaged me saying, yeah, there was the Wi-Fi issue. So that's why he couldn't, it got disconnected. And I think there was some Wi-Fi issue. So no worries, Shahid.
His name is Shahid, with the long A sound.
Yeah,
and not Shahid. Yeah, then it's the watcher.
Yeah. So Shahid is his name. Yeah. So thank you so much, dude.
Good, because I've been confused. Is it Shahid like the mortar or Shahid like the watcher?
Shahid.
Thank you.
Shahid. Yeah, Shahid. It's like the But yeah, this sort
and then someone's drastic also said Shadid, which is like fierce.
Oh yeah, Shadid is like fierce. Shadid. And there's it's an Urdu word too, in Shadid, like with such force and such vigor and passion.
Yeah, fierce in Arabic, yes.
Yes. So thank you so much, Jinny. Thank you everybody who joined the live stream. I really hope the algorithm assists us. I really hope it does.
Yes, let's praise the algorithm God.
Yeah,
let's praise him.
No, let's gods. There are probably a lot of gods.
Gods. Let's praise them. Give them our supplications, and they might grant us their beneficence.
Yes, let's sacrifice some trolls in their honor. Troll offerings.
Yeah, but we will see you
at Discord
later, our dear listeners and viewers, at Discord or at a later show.
At a later show. See you guys. Bye.